Leave a comment where you are listening in the world. Please subscribe if you enjoy our content. Enjoy. The very worst date of my life went like this. I had met a guy online in a local chat room. He was a few years older. I was 16 and he was 18. We talked for months as friends, exchanged pictures and talked about life. Then one day he asked me to go on a date with him. I said sure, and it went downhill from there. I lived in the country, and trying to give people directions could be hard because half of the road signs had been stolen and there were very few landmarks to reference. Turn left by the blue house with a big tree. Basically, trying to get him to my house was a nightmare. This was in early 2000, so while cell phones were starting to become more common, you didn't get service where I lived unless you climbed a tree. He finally got to my house and proceeded to bitch at me because I gave him bad directions and because I lived way out in the middle of nowhere. That should have been my first red flag, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I understand it can be frustrating. Then he proceeded to stand in my kitchen telling my dad what a great catch he was. Before everyone jumps to conclusions, it is absolutely normal for a young boy to be nervous when meeting a father. It is normal for them to want to make a good impression, for them to outline why they are a good guy, and to make promises to care for the daughter. That was not what he was doing. He was bragging about himself. He was bragging about his car, and even said something along the lines of my dad being lucky his daughter found such a good-looking guy. My dad looked at me with a look that could only say, "Is this guy kidding?" So we get in the car, and he tells me he thought we could go to a movie. Without asking what I wanted to see, he picked out the movie that he wanted to go to. I'm not against a girl paying for herself at all, but when we got to the counter he bought one ticket and snacks for himself, and then moved aside to allow me to buy my own ticket. Again, that's fine. But if someone asks you out, they should pay. Not because the man should pay for the woman, but because they asked you on a date. If I ask someone on a date, I would fully expect to pay for them, because that is implied when I ask them on a date with me. I bought my ticket, but didn't get snacks because I thought he already had. I thought wrong. Those were his snacks, not mine. I could get my own if I wanted them. I sat through a movie I didn't even care to see, with a boy who wouldn't share his snacks, but who kept trying to get me to make out with him. We had planned to go out to eat after the movie, but once we left he said he didn't really want anything to eat. That was okay with me, and I assumed he probably just didn't have enough money. Or maybe he was also starting to realize what a train wreck this date was. Either way, I assumed he would take me home. I assumed wrong. He ended up driving to a parking lot of a store that was being built. It was tucked back out of the way, and the lot was empty. He reclined his seat and told me he needed to nap for a while before taking me home. Nap? What? So what am I supposed to do? Except he didn't want to nap. He truly thought that after yelling at me for my directional skills, bragging about what a catch he was to my father, not sharing his snacks in the theater, not following through with the second part of the date, that I was going to jump over and have sex with him. I told him I would like to go home. He said that was fine, but it would be a while because he was going to nap. He kept begging for a kiss or other favors. I told him I was uncomfortable. I quickly realized I was in an abandoned parking lot, and even though there were hundreds of people around, they were not close enough to hear me if I needed help. I was alone, so I started kissing him and then told him I had to pee really bad. His car was his prized possession. God forbid I peed in it, so we drove to a gas station. I got out of the car and never got back in. I told him my dad was coming to get me and to go home. He asked when I would like to go out again. Actually, he said, "So when do you want to finish what we just started?" I don't hold it against him. Young boys are socially awkward and driven by hormones, but we never went on another date. To add a story on top of this from this old friend of mine, I used to be a bartender, which mainly involved 8 years of being tired, having a sore lower back and screaming "fuck OFF" in my head when people came to the bar. Still, I was under the impression there were certain trade-offs to living a night owl life. First and foremost of which was attention from girls. Oh boy, let me tell you now, that didn't come true. In fact, when women did interact with me directly, it was usually to be rude. I remember kicking a girl out once for being too drunk and dancing on tables inside, and she said, "I'm sorry you're gay" on the way out. I still don't know how that made me gay. Does it really make you gay to ask a woman to stop dancing on a table? If proper table manners and a clean space to eat a Caesar salad is a sign of homosexuality, then sign me up. But among all the mayhem and madness, there was actually one time when a girl showed some clear interest. She was blonde and short, wearing black fishnet stockings with a black corset top. Super sexy but strange choice of outfit. outside of a sex dungeon. She'd been in my bar for a while, drinking on this particular Saturday night with her mate, just the two of them, and while they were getting loose, thankfully they did not try and dance on any tables. By the time it got close to midnight, the bar now drowned out by the sounds of the extremely average DJ we would hire, it was hard enough to hear anyone order a drink, let alone have an actual conversation. So when this little blonde cutie came up to the bar and started trying to talk to me, I had no idea what she wanted. So in all her crafty feminine ways, she whipped out her eyeliner and wrote her phone number on my arm in big, black, bold numbers. I tell you right now, I've never felt more like a big man. Who's gay now, you drunk table dancing stranger? A few hours passed and she left later that night, though you couldn't wipe the smile off my face. So as the night became early morning and the bar closed up, I whipped out my phone and texted this mystery girl. Thinking she'd be tucked up in bed, she actually replied right away saying she was still in the city and keen to catch up for a drink. So I zapped her some trademark charm via text, relying on my years as a powerful storyteller to hit her with a magic line like, "You're pretty hot. Let's go on a date right now." And they say romance is dead. Just 20 minutes later, this random little cutie was walking with me in the still, cold air of a quiet Sydney city. Of course, I hadn't totally thought this late-night date through. I worked in a late-night bar on Sydney Harbor. By the time we'd closed, it was almost 3 a.m. So not only did I need to find a venue that would still be open, but it also had to be so relaxed with their liquor laws that they would let in a super drunk girl wearing fishnet stockings. So I made a judgment call that very quickly became the worst date I've been on. I decided we would go to a strip club. The second we arrived, I knew I'd made a grave error in judgment. I figured we'd stand up the back and have some quiet beers, treat it like a bar. That was not the case. The moment we walked in, a hostess ushered us to a small collection of couches and tables by a long stage. Without blinking, I'd been convinced to buy 2x beers for an outrageous fee. All the while, my very cute date in fishnet stockings sat quite glumly next to me. Turns out she had never been to a strip club and was only in her early 20s. I asked her if she had ever wanted to see what a strip club was like, thinking it might unlock some desire deep within her fishnet-wrapped soul, and that maybe she might enjoy the experience. She said no quietly as a group of loud businessmen bustled past. I don't know if the highlight of this bad date was realizing I didn't even know my date's name, or when the hostess told her she was pretty and asked if she'd ever thought about working in a strip club. I'll admit, in hindsight, it went downhill pretty quickly from the start. My date didn't finish even her beer. In fact, we barely had a conversation for the 30 minutes or so we were there. Eventually, inevitably, she left, falling into a taxi to go back to wherever it was she lived. So I sat and finished off both our beers instead. I think I realized at the time it was the worst date I've ever been on, and it was entirely my fault. I have no doubt that girl tells the same story to this day. And as a stripper stepped onto the table in front of me to dance, I also realized it might actually make me gay to ask her to get off after all. So I let her keep dancing on the table, and tipped her $20 too. I've been using Tinder for 3 to 4 years now, and I've always been very lucky. However, yesterday was a different story. Climax of the story. I'm in my date's bedroom. She's lying on her bed, drugged and intoxicated. She takes off her top, now topless, grabs my neck and starts kissing me. Her mom, who is standing there, leaves the room to give me some privacy to do what can only be considered a date rape. Flashback: a day earlier, we matched on Tinder. I suggested we skip the long chats and go for a drink. She suggested we chat on the phone first. We did for an hour, and it was nice. Some laughs, some flirting, and we agreed to spend the next morning at the beach. We met. Everything is going great, and all signs are saying we'll end up having crazy sex very soon. Left the beach, had lunch, and then agreed to go back to my place. She said she needed to pass by her place to change and take some stuff. No problem. She introduced me to her mom, her dog, her cat, and some neighbors. Getting too cozy for a Tinder date. Then she said, "Change of plans. My mom is going to spend the night at my brother's place. Would you mind spending the night here instead?" I thought, why not? I'm getting lucky, so I don't care. She started preparing dinner, and I started drinking. Turned out her mom is going nowhere, and I had too much to drink. I can't drive back home. So I'm stuck with them for the night. That's when things started to get crazy. Dinner table had prawns and oysters with bacon, which I hate. So I started eating the prawns when my date offered some oysters. I politely declined and said I was happy with the prawns. She insisted so much it got awkward, so I took it. She asked me if I liked it. I smiled and said nothing. She started getting angry and yelled at me that I should be more direct and speak up. I told her I didn't like it. It might be good, but it's not for me. She started yelling at me and demanding an explanation why I don't like it. That's when her mom jumped in and tried to defuse the situation. To my surprise, my date grabbed the prawns plate and threw it across the room straight into the wall. Then she stormed away into her room. That's when her mom explained to me that she'd been in and out of rehab because of depression with 2 suicide attempts, and that she was on medication and was not supposed to have any alcohol. Now I'm feeling really sorry for her. She came out of her room, laughing as if nothing happened, and brought some dessert and more champagne. Suddenly, she stood up and challenged me into a fight. MMA fight. She knew I've done MMA for over 10 years. She started throwing punches at my chest and stomach, and then to my face. I was blocking or slipping all punches and asking her to stop. She got really vicious and started adding kicks to her attack. I grabbed her arms, put my weight on her, and took her to the ground. She totally collapsed and lay there unconscious. I shouldn't drive back home because I had 7 to 8 drinks. I can't take a taxi and leave my car because there's a big chance she'll trash it. But I decided, fuck it, I'll drive back home. I carried her to her bed when she opened her eyes, smiled, and then all of a sudden took her top off, grabbed my neck and started kissing me. Her mom, who was standing there, left the room to give me privacy to do what can only be considered a date rape. I pushed her away and started walking backwards out of the room when she gave me a final kick to the stomach goodbye. Not crazy enough? I woke up this morning to a few missed calls from my date and a couple of messages with a casual apology and a couple of ideas for our second date. Another bad date story to add. What I noticed first was the pile of tiny plastic eyedroppers that was building up in front of us while we sat side by side at the bar. I don't know why it took me so long to see this. And I don't know how he fit all those little bottles in his pants pocket. There must have been 100 of them, easily. I'm not kidding you. Literally every 30 seconds or so, he'd pull out 2 eyedroppers and very swiftly tilt his head back and lubricate his eyeballs. He was so fast, and we were having such engrossing discussions, that it took me at least a half hour to even realize what he was doing. I politely asked for an explanation. He told me he had had eye surgery for a serious eye condition he developed, and while that surgery saved his eyesight, he was left with this burden of watering his eyes approximately twice per minute. Poor fellow. Being a contact lens wearer, I can certainly relate to the discomfort of dry eyes. It sucks, but I was a bit taken aback by the fact that he seemed to expect the bartender to clean up the eyedroppers. I hope he left him a large tip for that. The poor bartender had to collect them all with a napkin each time the pile built up to roughly 2 inches in height. I'd say there were about 4 piles over the course of the evening. But that's not all. Towards the end of the date, I pulled out my phone to see 6 missed calls from my mother. I knew something was horribly wrong, because my grandmother had recently fallen ill and was at a nursing home. I excused myself and called my mother back, fearing the worst. My grandmother had died an hour ago. Tearfully, I went back inside and told him I had to go. I hope he didn't think it was an excuse for me being freaked out by the eyedroppers. My grandmother really did pass away. It may also have been the weirdest date ever for him, given that I had to bag out of it due to a death in my family that occurred during the actual date. We are now married. Just kidding. I never saw him again after that night, though he did send me a few texts to cheer me up in the ensuing days. He was a really nice guy. Many moons ago, before I was a happily married lass, a pair of friends set me up on a date with a buddy of theirs. He was an actor/musician. I had his album, burnt via my mates, so don't get excited. This is not a celebrity in disguise story. This is a celebrity wannabe and absolutely no attempt to disguise its story. We'd met briefly at a party, and I'd been suitably intrigued. I was around 18, he was early 30s, and I must confess his music was very good. I wasn't so silly as to think he was the next big thing, but you'd have to be a massive jerk not to acknowledge that he clearly had immense talent. I had a history of dating older fellas, but I was also very no-nonsense and skeptical of ego and self-absorption. So, the date is suggested. I agree and suggest we see a play happening nearby, but I was keen to stick to my usual blind-ish date rule. Always be the driver. It stops you getting drunk, you have control over the way the night rolls, and most importantly, you usually pick them up from their house. And brother, can you learn a lot from a man's house? In this instance, it was a relatively small flat, okay, he'd only recently moved to the city. The furniture was mostly disposable, again, he'd recently moved. But the strangest thing was that the TV was on when I arrived. "Take a seat," he said, gesturing to the unfolded card table in the corner. "I'm just setting up the video to record an ad I was recently in." This was the year 2000, when one still had a VHS. "Okay, thinks I, that's reasonable. He's new to the city, keen to add to his showreel. I totally appreciate that he needs to record his advert to get work." 15 minutes pass. We're watching awful TV together while he sits on the edge of his bean bag, waiting for his ad to come on. In this time, I've delighted in noticing that his bed is just a mattress on the floor. It's okay, he's just moved. His primary instrument for cooking is a George Foreman grill. They're surprisingly good. Aha! And the card table is looking a little bit wobbly. The phone rings. Him. "Hang on, I have to take this." Me. "Oh, that's fine. The play doesn't start until 8. Him. "Hello? Oh, you saw it." I realize it's his mum, who lives in a regional town that has different channels to the city. "So you didn't record it?" You didn't? Seriously, Mum, you had one job. One F *** king job. All you had to do was record the F *** king advert. And you couldn't even do that, could you? You're seriously F *** king useless. Why did you even call me? Why? What's the point of you calling me right now? And so on. So I am 18, listening to a 30-year-old man abuse his mother for failing to record his awful advert for his rubbish, non-existent acting career. Awkward. Finally, we accept that the advert has been lost. I realize we are close to missing the play, so I suggest we head off. We go to a bar. He spends the whole time complaining about the mother situation. We drive to the theater. Surprise, surprise, the doors are shut and we miss out. He suggests we go to a Chinese restaurant where he used to get a massive bag of fried rice for $2 when he was a student. I want this night to end and fast, so I agree. We eat the worst, most plastic Chinese food I've had in my life, while he talks about himself, and I nod awkwardly. Finally, I feel I've suffered long enough, and I say, "So, shall I drive you home?" As we drive home, he says, "You know I'm not going to sleep with you, right? Be still, my beating vagina." "You mean you, abuser of mothers, 30-year-old self-absorbed, time-wasting lover of George Foreman grills, do not wish to sleep with me, 18-year-old silent judge of your awfulness? Oh, how my poor heart breaks." And yet, at his door, he tried to kiss me. Worst date ever. Going anonymous on this one, sorry about it. I just don't think I can face being associated with the story I am about to tell. It will be a bit long-winded, but one of the weirdest encounters ever happened in my life. And as it happened in a date, so here it goes. I signed up for a free dating site and started chatting to several guys. One of them seemed like a nice and decent person. When we started talking, it was about usual topics, interests. The conversation was flowing, as they say. I gave him my mobile number, and he sent me texts every day, just some niceties. One of them was, "I think we are on the same wavelength." "I hope so," I responded. I haven't the slightest known yet how wrong I was on assuming so. After a week of talks, we set up a real-life date. He lived around an hour train ride from me, and came to the station to pick me up. When I entered his car, he looked up to the sky and said, "Do you find those clouds a bit weird?" There were no clouds, only condensation trails from airplanes. I said, "These are not clouds." To which he responded, "Exactly," and had an expression on his face as if he just had said something really meaningful. Bit of an odd exchange, but I shrugged a shoulder and we did not mention the not clouds again. To my surprise, the date he set up was not the usual movie or restaurant combo with drinking. Instead, he took me to the riverside on a boat ride. I was enjoying it a lot. We both did a bit of rowing. It was sunny. We chatted nonchalantly. We were talking about building styles in the UK. I am a foreigner. And I told him my impressions about buildings and differences to my home country. I also added that my dad is a bricklayer, so I have seen many houses being built. To this, he said, "I have built something too." I asked, "What did you build?" "It is very unique. You will see it once, I hope." He said mysteriously, "What is it, a bunker?" I joked and we laughed out loud. The first date was over. I thanked him for the pleasant time and laughs. There was not much chemistry between us, but I thought, what the hell, I will give another chance. So when the next day he asked me for a second date, a dinner in his house, I said yes. We drove to his house, where he lived alone. A nice and big family home. He had a wine chilled and invited me to look around. Everything was tidy, clean, and stylish. I was impressed. We settled, and he poured me some wine. Out of the blue, at one point, he told me to go outside and check his car. The following conversation happened. Do you see the scratches on the side? He pointed on the side where large, faint scratches were running. Of course I can see them. What do you think caused them? He asked again. I suppose branches or grass, or other cars, maybe some metal objects, a key maybe? I said, hesitantly unsure where this conversation is going. Let me tell you, Satan did these scratches, sounded his response. Pardon? Satan scratched my car. Again, that sort of meaningful expression. You mean figuratively, I think, mean people maybe with evil motivation? I tried to deter the disturbing turn. No, literally the Satan itself. He said dead serious. Adaro. Do you know the feeling, when suddenly the world seemed like upside down, and the fear hits you momentarily to make you nazetic and words froze inside you? I had that, combined with one of the biggest WTF moment. Is this guy crazy or what? We went back inside. My alarm bells were set off after this, I tell you. I was like a hawk, watching for little signs of anything unexpected. Little did I know that the real fun starts later. He suggested we go to the kitchen and eat dinner. At least something normal, right? Right. You would think that someone inviting you over would prepare something. This was not the case. He suggested we eat soft-boiled eggs. I happen to like boiled eggs very much, so ate 4 of them with bread. No problem, I am not fussy. So far so good. After dinner, we went back to the living room, and I relaxed a bit as Satan and scratches, the weird clouds and none of this crap was mentioned again. However, around a half hour later, again without any transition, he says, let me blindfold you, so I can show you what I built. My mind went screaming, an OF way. Adrenaline rushed through my blood, I could sense it. Right then, I became concerned that this guy wants to kill me. In the same time I decided he won't have an easy task to do, so as I will fight like hell. I am not timid and rather strong and quick, so I was sizing up my options to run to the kitchen, grab a knife and defend myself if it comes to that. At this point, I'm wondering who was crazier, me or him. Amazingly, this is what I responded to him, without even thinking. You know what? You are not going to blindfold me. Reason is, I think you are plotting to kill me. I know, and I also want you to know that you are not going to succeed. I will fight until my last breath. I sounded very calm, which amazed me even further. His eyes opened wide and seemed genuinely surprised. Okay, I can see you are nervous. Calm down, I am not planning anything. Just wanted to surprise you. I can see it backfired, so let's just go as we are. No blindfold, I promise. He said. Even though I was scared, I was also curious, so I responded. Right. I will take a look under 2 conditions. First, you go in front of me and... Second, I will take a knife from the kitchen and walk behind you. One bad move and you are dead. Did I mention I do martial arts? He agreed to my conditions. So here we are walking out the back door into the dark garden. The wind is blowing, trees and bushes rustle ominously as we walk the path. Him in the front with a light, me behind him, armed with the biggest kitchen knife I have ever seen. Just a perfect picture of 2 bats-hit crazy lunatics. As a matter of fact, I have never fought in my life. I'm absolutely terrified. I lied about the martial art thing as well. I don't know what I'm doing here. Who is this insane person with me? Not a single soul knows I am even here. I think about my life, my family far away, my stupidity. We reach the shed in the back, well away from the house. There is only me and him, the bushes, and complete silence. Around us, and as in front of us, as much as I can tell, just some woody areas and meadows and a garden shed. This is it, he says, standing in front of the shed. Just a normal wooden shed, with 6 locks on the door. This is what you built. Well, good one, now we can go back. I am almost relieved. No, the one I built is inside. Do you allow me to open it? I realize he must be scared of me a bit too. I nod. He removes the locks and opens the door. The first thing I saw is a big-ass axe on the floor. I jump away and pull the knife in front of me defensively. I knew it. Is this your murder weapon? I shout. I can feel my heart beating so fast. Sorry. This is not meant to be here. I will put it away, okay? There. He says quickly. Give me that axe. Handle first. I order. He did. Now look inside, he asks and steps aside. Very slowly, keeping an eye on him, I look inside the shed. Nothing. No rotting corpses, no torture chamber, just a few gym equipment, gardening tools, completely normal. I sigh. Maybe I imagined too much into this until... From the corner of my eyes I notice something on the floor. This. A submarine hatch door. Holy crap, like a bloody roller coaster. My gut is churning again. You really built a bunker. This is all I can say. What? How? Why? Words would fail to describe my thinking processes. Yes, he says bluntly and asks me to allow him to open the hatch door. Next thing I know is we are looking down into a hole with concrete stairs, thick concrete walls, going down a few meters. A nuclear bunker. I am thinking, if he kills me now and closes the door, nobody will ever find me. Let me tell you the end quickly. I went down and looked around in the nuclear bunker of his design. He wanted to know what I think of it. I pointed out that no air filtration, pollution measurement equipment and surveillance system was installed, so I was not sure if it is of any use, apart from hiding dead bodies. He agreed it needs improvement. After the tour, we went back to the house. As you can guess, I was exhausted and weary from the whole evening, but a bit calmer as I was still alive. I thanked him for everything and requested to leave. He cried and told me he never met such a cool person as I am. I was happy I only met a lunatic and not a serial killer. We had worked together for a couple of months. She was hands down the prettiest girl around, and I doubt she had looked at me, at least on purpose. I finally gained the courage to ask the girl of my dreams out on a date. She looked like she wanted to say no, but squeaked out a yes as if it were out of pity. If only she knew how pitiful it would end up being. I planned a great date. We started by going to the top-rated Mexican restaurant in the state. It was great. Food tasted amazing, we were having great conversation, and I think she was legitimately feeling bad for thinking about saying no to me. I couldn't believe it, this spark could actually turn into something. I got a burrito and she got taco salad. I wish it had been the other way around. We finished up, and as we exited the restaurant into the mall next door where the car was parked, I felt my stomach scream. You know how sometimes your stomach will grumble, and you know you're in trouble. This was no grumble. This was a scream. As we headed to my car, I knew that I had to get back into that mall and find the restroom. It didn't matter. It was too late. I literally shit my pants. How the hell do you cover that up? I needed new pants. I pulled out a gem. Hey, it's my sister's birthday this weekend. Mind if we stop in the store so I can buy her a shirt? Went in the store, distracted my date, grabbed a random girl's shirt that would never have fit my sister, no offense, and headed to men's jeans. Quick search, stuffed in the bag, and made it to the cashier. Bought the pants and the shirt, had the cashier put them in separate 2 bags, and I was good to go. Boy, was I wrong. Part 2 of the date was a slow train up the side of the mountain. In the winter, the snow is beautiful and romantic, but it's freezing up there. Because of the shit in my pants, I insisted that we keep the windows down in order to breathe the fresh mountain air, smooth. By the time we got to the station, she had icicle boogers, and her eyes were glued shut. Yikes. We get on the train, I go to the bathroom with my bag ready to switch my pants, and get back to trying to get my dream date to continue liking me. I go in, strip my pants, strip my boxers, and begin the cleanup process. Fortunately, there was a window in the train bathroom, so I threw my used tissues, jeans, and boxers out the window to get rid of the evidence. I grab my shopping bag, open it up, and inside is my sister's fake shirt. Lucky this train was a slow roller. I put the shirt on like a pair of pants with my junk hanging out the neck hole and jumped off the moving train. I quit my job over the phone and never saw her again. So I'm living in the Bay Area, working as a management consultant, and I buy a new car. I'm a bit of a performance enthusiast, so it was a nice one but nothing too ostentatious, but it was at a nice dealership. In buying cars, you often deal with the service counter, and at that service counter was a painfully cute brunette. So, of course, I make sure that I get everything done that I needed to and struck up a conversation during one visit. Talked a bit, and asked her if she wanted to hang out sometime. She agreed, said it sounded fun. We exchange info. I agree to pick her up later that week. Tell her it's a casual date, fun, nothing formal. So I pick her up, her roommate answers the door and says Lelia is running a little late, to come in and wait, shouldn't be long. 45 minutes later, Lelia comes out, but she's looking good, so I'm not too angry. But damn, 45 minutes late for a casual date, but okay. So we go to a mini golf place, a nice one, and we play a little bit. She's cute but annoying. She was a screamer, and that is one thing that rides my nerve. When a woman screams at every little thing, just random shrieks because it's fun. She misses close, she screams, she sinks one, she screams, something happens with a hazard, she screams. We're talking, and there is a difference in educational levels and interests. Career goals are a bit different. That kind of thing. She's also younger than I am by a few years. I was like 26 at that time, I think. She was probably 22. So different levels of maturity. But it's not a total disaster yet. I'm just mildly annoyed, but being nice. About halfway through the game, she orders a beer. No big deal, I order one too. Then she orders another at the end of the game. I tell her that I was thinking a nearby restaurant that's pretty good. She agrees. We head over there. We walk in and she exclaims, "Let's sit at the bar." Okay, let's do that. I will say that anytime your date, when you're in a sort of trendy place, yells shots. It's a bad sign. I order some appetizers, she orders a mixed drink, which by the time the food arrives has turned into shots of tequila IRC. I've tried to tell her to back off the drinking, slow down, all that stuff. She says I don't know how to have a good time. Suffice it to say, she gets hammered. Hammered enough to be obnoxious with the server, and generally look like a fool. At one point, she gets up to use the restroom and loudly exclaims, "Gotta break the seal," followed by a woohoo sound, to which people all look at. Understand that this isn't a party bar or restaurant. It's sort of a cool place with craft cocktails and decent food. I wanted to burst into flames. One woman at the table overlooks at me and says, "I'm so sorry," and her presumed boyfriend/husband goes, "Ouch dude, cut and run." Do you have any idea how embarrassing someone has to be to bring people into commenting on your shitty date? Pretty freaking embarrassing. She left her phone on the table, and I had to. I picked it up, it wasn't locked. Found her roommate's number and called her. Told her this was Richard, Lilia's date, and she was plastered. Utterly ridiculous. Her response? "Yeah, that happens, she likes to have a good time. Just bring her home, I guess it's gonna get worse." Lilia comes out of the bathroom, still reeling, and stops our server and says, "I want another shot." I'm like, "No, we need to get going." She then calls me a wuss, and that I'm uptight. I lead her out, drop about $120 on the table, knowing that we'll cover with a generous tip, and lead her out of the restaurant. We get going, she wants to hit a bar and party, and I want nothing of the sort. She says, "Oh, we could go back your place," and makes this weird hip gyrating motion with a sound I can only describe as eh. No, not happening. 1. I'm not going to fuck some drunk girl. 2. I don't want this crazy person in my rather nice apartment. I tell her I'm taking her home. She gets angry, calls me a pussy, and that I don't know how to have fun. Then she says she doesn't feel so good, to which I pull over and was about to help her out, and she says it's coming, and I roll down the window and she hangs out and proceeds to upchuck down the outside of my car. My brand new ISF. I wasn't amused. At this point, I'm past being polite. I open the door for her, she finishes giving flight to her dinner. I get her back in the car and drive her home. She starts crying and saying what a wreck she is. I agree with that. As I said, I'm past being polite. She starts crying more, and I bite my lip and drive her home without saying another word. I'm pissed off. I mean angry. Pissed like a bear. I take her up to her place as she stumbles and cries, not letting her fall and knock on her door. Her roommate answers and takes her inside, apologizes, and Lilia turns around and says something incomprehensible. I make my escape, then find a car wash and find myself washing vomit off of my car in the dark, alone. That was a hell of a moment. Still, by far the worst date I've ever been on. Once upon a time, I spontaneously asked out a customer of mine on a date. Her name was Rebecca, but went by Reba. When I asked her if she had any idea when she wanted to go, she suggested right after I got off my shift. Considering that I had nothing going on that night, I accepted those terms. Also invited was my co-worker Ally. She and I usually finished our shifts at the same time, and I often gave her a ride home from work. She was also a couple of months pregnant, but the father was not in her life. We went to a nearby sports bar, and Reba ordered drinks for all of us while Ally and myself were in the bathroom. As a rule, I don't drink alcohol, and Ally was underage and pregnant at the time, so she couldn't drink either. When we told Reba this, she started crying and calling herself a mess. She then proceeded to show us a fresh-looking bruise that was located on her leg. Apparently her boyfriend had kicked her earlier that day during a fight. They had only been dating 4 months. According to Reba, he was both physically and mentally abusive, and she wanted out. Ally and I did our best to help console and advise her. However, the more she drank, the more incoherent, upset, and defiant she became. At one point, she said that she needed to go outside for a smoke to calm her nerves. I am not a smoker, so Ally went along with her, leaving me alone. Soon after they left, a 40-something woman sitting at the bar came up to me and told me that she was watching us and thought I was cute. She asked me if I wanted to join our group so that we can have a foursome. Sensing that she was a prostitute, I told her I wasn't interested. However, the woman was undeterred. She then started describing in graphic detail how the four of us could all have sex with each other at the same time, and even started to demonstrate it by straddling my lap. Right as that was happening, Reba and Ally came back. I explained to them that the woman wanted to have a foursome with us. Reba became angry and told the woman that I was 21. The woman asked me if that was true, and I confirmed it. Then she backed down, stating that she wasn't one to take advantage of someone so young, and went back to the bar. Shortly after the woman left, Ally excused herself to play pool with some guys she knew, leaving me and Reba alone. We got to talking about our lives, and she told me some dark stories about her family and experiences growing up. By the end, she apologized for her behavior and said that she really liked me. I told her that I liked her too. Then she grabbed the front of my shirt and pulled me in for a kiss. Not only was I reluctant to do that, but it was absolutely the worst kiss I ever had in my life. Not only was it sloppy, but her breath tasted like a combination of cherries and cheap cigarettes. Reba seemed to recognize my reluctance, and when we were done, she started breaking down and crying again. I told her that as much as I liked her, the situation was very complicated and that it wasn't a good idea to do what we were doing, especially if her boyfriend was violent. She told me that she respected me for that, but still cried about it. Ally and I offered to take her to our places and crash, but she declined. Instead, she wanted to go home. However, there was one problem. Neither Reba was not in any state to be driving, and Ally did not have a driver's license. So I volunteered to drive them home in my car. After placing the two girls in the back seat, I went to Reba's black Mustang convertible to get some of her stuff to bring home with her. As I was exiting the car, I was approached by the woman who wanted the foursome. She told me that I had a nice car. Before I could explain that it wasn't mine, she pulled me in for a kiss and stuck her hand down my pants. I thanked the woman for the kiss, but told her I had to take the girls home, and that I likely couldn't afford having her for the night. She stared at me blankly for a few seconds, and I turned back. To this day, I am not sure if she was an overeager prostitute, or if she was just a random person who wanted to do some crazy sexual things that night. The entire ride to Reba's apartment was filled with her moaning in pain, begging me to not leave her and to stay the night. I told her I wouldn't leave her and that I would stay. However, when we brought her to the apartment, to our surprise, the boyfriend was there. Rather than being angry at him for being at her apartment without permission, Reba seemed to think this was a romantic gesture and ran to his arms. He sat down on the couch, and she started curling on his lap, crying and saying sorry over and over again. He thanked us for getting her home safe, and we left. I took Ally home and walked her to her door. She told me how sweet I was and pulled me into a deep, awkward feeling/kiss, and then turned away. Later on, she texted me that while she loved me as a person, she didn't feel that we were sexually compatible. I responded by stating I had no idea she was even considering us being a couple. She responded by telling me that she considered the previous night a date, even though she knew very well that I was interested in Reba. So yeah, that's the night I went on a date with two women without knowing it, punctuated by a run-in with a prostitute/nymphomaniac who had the hots for me for some strange reason. Let's see. No, it's not the date on which my high school girlfriend decided that me moving away to college instead of marrying her and staying in my tiny hometown was a really bad idea, and that sucker punching me and driving us both to our deaths off a cliff, where we'd previously been sitting enjoying the sunset, was the win. That's too Shakespearean. And it's not the date where my date didn't go home after dinner, but instead spent the night sleeping in her car in my driveway waiting for me, because we're meant to be together. That's too Fatal Attraction. It's gotta be this one. I had a relationship of convenience with Colleen, an unspeakably cute Irish girl. She worked in HR for a client of mine, and we met when the client decided they needed to internally staff a position to support a project I'd done for them. We hit it off, and rapidly became each other's number one call when carnal desires reared their head. When she called me, I was delighted. That shifted a bit as she asked for a favor. Her sister was staying with her for a bit, and could I take her out for the evening? I was hesitant. I remembered her sister, short, spiky, flaming red hair, a plus, Rail thin, angry, strident, not pluses. Wicked smart, super plus. Colleen explained that she'd really changed a lot since I'd seen her a few years ago, and that I wouldn't be disappointed, and that if I were, she'd make it up to me. Okay, I'm in. When I rang the doorbell, I didn't recognize Sheila at first. The red hair was there, but wow, she had changed. Generous curves, a vast bosom, the spiked dugong and shoulder-length curls replacing it. It's like I was seeing a totally different woman. And she was super friendly and delighted to see me. Big hug, quick kiss, grabbed her purse, and off we went. Dinner, drinks, a walk around the park, lots of very entertaining conversation, some pretty serious flirting. And I learned that she'd discovered a few years back that she was hyperthyroid and had a couple of other glandular disorders as a result, and that with treatment, she was now in fact very different. I was delighted. Eventually, she slipped into my lap, kissed me, and said, "Let's go back to the apartment." Shortly, we were in the living room. She dropped my pants to the floor and pushed me down on the couch, and pulled her dress off and straddled me, and was telling me in pretty explicit terms exactly how she wanted the rest of the night to go. As she was kissing me, hard, for the first time, there was an explosion of drywall and wood as the front door shattered. A short, stocky, very angry woman stood in the debris, breathing hard. She saw us, pointed at Sheila and screamed something unintelligible, then broke a bar stool and using a leg from it, ran at us, knocking Sheila off me, and alternating beating the two of us with it, yelling, "That's my pussy! Keep the fuck away from her." I'm trying to stand up, get the stool leg away from her, protect Sheila and navigate with my pants around my ankles, all at the same time. Just about the time I'd grabbed her, and was wrestling for control of the stick, for police officers burst through the door with guns drawn. Now picture this, naked crying woman cowering in the corner. Angry fully clothed woman fighting with a half-naked man. What's your immediate conclusion, officer? Yeah, good times. Eventually, it was all sorted out. There was no happy ending. Sheila was back in town because she was on parole from an embezzlement charge. She'd met Grace, the short angry woman, in prison, and they'd become an item. Grace was on parole for second-degree manslaughter, pled down for murder. Her second trip through the system. Grace had been trying to get back with Sheila. Sheila wasn't feeling the love. Grace had followed us all night and beat up the doorman to find out which apartment we were headed for. The doorman called the police, explaining their seemingly rapid arrival. I was released, but both Grace and Sheila went away with the officers, heading back to prison for various parole violations. And Colleen? She didn't speak to me for months over returning home to crime scene tape, a completely missing front door, and a wrecked living room. Oh man, my absolute worst date? Let me take you back about 2 years. It was with my ex, and we decided to meet up at this spot that seemed like a good idea at the time. Picture this. It's a serene river, with these massive rocks lining the bank where you could just chill and dangle your feet in the water. The scenery was straight out of a postcard, and I figured it'd be the perfect setting for a laid-back chat. Our parents weren't exactly cool with the whole dating scene, so meeting up at a cozy cafe or somewhere public was totally out of the question. That's why we thought this secluded river spot was our best bet. Alright, so here's the play-by-play. I get to the meeting point and wait for her to arrive. When she does, we start strolling towards the river, just chatting and having a good time like any normal date. It only takes us about 15 minutes to get there. But guess what? When we reach the riverbank, there's already another couple there, minding their own business. The girl's all shy, not even looking at us, while the guy gives me this knowing smile. Naturally, I shoot one back, trying to keep things friendly. We decide to take a spot a bit away from them and continue our conversation. Eventually, the other couple decides to peace out, leaving us with the whole spot to ourselves. Perfect, right? Wrong. Just as we're getting comfy, and I start playing some songs on my phone, out of nowhere, this gang of rowdy guys shows up. I'm talking like 15 of them, total loudmouths. In one word, chapery. Man, talk about a total buzzkill. At first, these guys seem harmless enough, just chatting away among themselves. I'm thinking, hey, maybe I misjudged them. They're not so bad after all. Boy, was I wrong. Before I know it, rocks start flying in my direction. Like, what the heck? I brush it off at first, trying to keep my cool. But then it just keeps happening, and these jerks are laughing like it's the funniest thing ever. That's when I've had enough. I shoot them a glare that could freeze lava and decide it's time to bail. I grab my date's hand, and we turn to get the hell out of there. But oh no, the drama's not over yet. These assholes decide to play tag along all the way back to the city. I'm talking a good 30 minutes of them tailing us, making obnoxious noises, shouting random stuff the whole time. And get this, one of them even owns a rickshaw. So what do? Pile all 15 of themselves into that poor rickshaw and trail behind us like a pack of hyenas. God, that was the worst date I've ever been to. Another one for you. This goes back 30 years to when I was just 15 years old, and still makes me shudder whenever I think about it. Back then, I was in the Air Cadets. School had just broken up for the long summer holiday, and as a member of the Air Cadets, we went on our annual camp. This particular year, it was at RAF Koningsby in the north of England for our week-long training trip. After 3 hours on the road in our bus, we pulled over into a service station to get some breakfast, drinks, and use the bathroom, etc. We were all in our uniforms, of course. Now, before I continue, I need to point out that at that age, I was a no-hoper. I had zero sense of style, was shy, introverted, and very much a virgin. We all sat down, about 50 of us, and started eating our breakfast when I noticed one of the waitresses. She was gorgeous, simply beautiful. You know how it is at that age. I was already in love and planning to marry her. A few of my compadres noticed me drooling, and proceeded to kindly remind me of what a loser I was when it came to girls. Well, not for long. Out of the blue, this stunning girl walked up to me, smiled, put a piece of paper in front of me, and walked away. I unfolded the note, and it simply said, Annie, followed by her number. Well, you can imagine, I was elated and shocked. The week passed, we finished our annual camp, and headed back home. This was 30 years ago, remember, so mobile phones were hardly around, and I therefore still hadn't contacted her. The evening I arrived home, I plucked up the courage to call Annie. We had a great chat, and did so most evenings thereafter. She lived 100 miles away from me, so the hard part was planning to meet. At our age, it wasn't a simple case of jumping into the car. She had, however, invited me to visit her, and said her parents were fine if I wished to do so. I then sat down with my parents and told them the story. They were very good about it, and once my dad had spoken to her dad, he agreed to drive me up there to her house where I'd spend the weekend. All the way there, a 2-hour drive, I was driving my dad to near insanity, constantly talking about the wonderful Annie and how beautiful she was. We eventually found her house, which was no mean feat as it was in the countryside, miles from anywhere. But find it we did. We got out of the car, grabbed my bag, and walked to the front door. I rang the bell, my heart beating like crazy. We heard footsteps, the door unlocked and opened. There stood this blonde, elephant. A blonde elephant with terrible skin and worse teeth. I said, "Hi, is Annie here, please?" "Oh, I'm Annie," she replied. I started sweating, and I could hear my dad suppressing laughter behind me. I said, knowing it was a pointless last hope due to me recognizing her voice from our phone calls, "No, I'm here to meet Annie, the one who left me the note in the service station." "Oh yeah, sorry about that. I was too shy to give you the note in person, so I asked my friend to give it to you for me." At that point, Dad said, "Okay son, I'm off, have a great weekend." He was literally dripping with sweat from holding in his laughter. He walked to the car, got in, and I swear, as soon as he'd closed his door, he let out the loudest laugh I'd ever heard, and that still stands to this day. 3 days I was there, and it was the first time in my young life that I truly understood what the term depression meant. I'd been crushing on this girl for months. She knew it, and I knew she liked me too, but she never would go out on a date with me for some reason. I think it was a clique thing, as I wasn't one of the cool kids. We would always flirt like crazy, but never took it any further despite my many attempts. Finally one day she agrees out of the blue, and we schedule a movie for Friday. We had never really had any time when it was just myself and her. It was always in a social situation, and only when we found ourselves in a semi-isolated part of a party or whatnot. She would always tone it way down in front of her friends. Anyway, I pick her up, and it's like night and day. She's incredibly giddy/excited, and even kisses me when I meet her at the door. We laugh and flirt for the whole drive, and everything is right with the world. At some point before this day, we had decided that it would be a good, high movie, and I promised to bring some weed. We had gotten caught up in the flirting/laughing on the drive, and when we finally got to the parking lot I said, "Oh yeah, did you want to smoke before we go in?" She agreed, and we shared AJ in the car. Mind you, this is in the middle of summer, and my POS car at the time didn't have AC. It was hot enough just driving, but after sitting in the car in the sun, idle for 5 minutes, we were both thoroughly baked, both ways, smiley face. When we finally walked into the theater, it was like a slap in the face walking into the AC'd lobby, similar to the momentary shock you get jumping into a cold pool. We got our tickets, and I noticed she looked pale, but didn't say anything. When we got to the concession stand, I ordered popcorn and asked her what she wanted to drink. She says, "I can't see," and is getting all wobbly. My Seattled brain can't process this, and I say, "You want a Pepsi?" She then proceeds to collapse. It's a Friday night at a large theater, so there are tons of people around, and you can hear the collective audible gasp when this happens. I'm just standing there in a stupor, blazed out of my mind, and people are asking, "Is she okay? Does she have any medical conditions?" I think at best I stammered out, I don't know. It doesn't help to be high in these situations. Thankfully, after a minute or so, which felt like an hour, she wakes up. Apparently she is one of those people who deal with embarrassment with anger, so once she gets up and sees everyone staring at her, she runs off. I'm trying to walk with her, helping her stay upright as she is still staggering, but she keeps telling me to leave her alone. I finally get her to the car after she rebuffs all my, "Are you okay, what can I do?" questions, and she passes out again. She sleeps while I just sit there watching, making sure she's still breathing, etc. When she does wake up, she immediately asks to be taken home. The bitchiness is gone now, but she won't talk, so we have an incredibly awkward silence for 20 minutes on the drive home. I finally get to her driveway, and she has tears in her eyes and says, "I'm sorry I ruined our date, Seraph." I try to explain that it's not a big deal at all, and I just wish she'd talk to me. But she basically runs out of the car and goes inside. This was pre-cell phone days, and while I think I had her number, it was probably written on a piece of paper somewhere that I couldn't find. So I just accepted my fate and went home crestfallen. I kept hoping to bump into her at some gathering, but didn't see her for probably a month. When I did finally find her, all I wanted to do was to rush over and hug her, but she would actively avoid eye contact and stay huddled with her friends. This continued until I just gave up, but I still think about her to this day. It was my first date. I remember it like one might remember being raped by a rhinoceros. I worked at a Chinese restaurant and didn't make much money. I had saved 2 paychecks because I wanted to ask out this girl in my class. 3 days before the weekend, I asked her out to dinner and a movie. I'm 16. So is she. She's skinny, smiles embarrassed smiles, really meek, quiet, but she was beautiful. My brother and sister-in-law are my guardians at this point in my life. I swear to God my sister-in-law was trying to cock-block me. They wanted me to look so nice for my first date. I told them it was a girl into heavy metal, not some pale farmer's daughter who only listens to Christian music. They wouldn't hear no about it. My sister-in-law made me wear a sweater vest on the date. Up till this point, my only experience with sweater vest was to tease people who wore them. She even tried to get me to wear a necktie, and at this point, I was noped the fuck out. I said I was under no circumstances going in public dressed like that. We compromised to me just wearing the sweater vest. I don't have a license yet, so my brother is the one choffering us to the movies. We were going to eat at Ruby Tuesdays across the street after the movie. It's go time. We pull up to her house. She's wearing her toys in the attic black t-shirt and blue jeans with holes in the knees and black and red canvas tennis shoes. Her hair is down and rippling like ramen noodles, only prettily. She looks at me and is turning red, trying to keep from laughing in my face. My response was to mutter, "Yeah, I know," morosely. I'm pretty sure my expression rather closely resembled the ashamed look of a golden retriever who's just shit on the living room rug and has gone off to die of embarrassment. We go to the movie. Who do we run into? My date's best friend. She informs me that she has a date with 2 friends and that she can't join us. I was relieved at this, not realizing that she was there on purpose, and that this was referred to as a safety date to make sure I wasn't some creepy jock type that was going to roofie her and have my way with her. We enjoyed the movie a lot. Afterwards, we crossed the parking lot and headed for the restaurant. I had calculated how much money I was going to need to pay for our meals and dessert, and should have had $15 left over. I did some research. We get over to Ruby Tuesday. We get a table in the corner by the front window, and we're talking and joking and making fun of my sweater vest, when who shows up out of nowhere? Safety bitch. She joins us without asking, declares she's hungry too. Tells me, "You got a job, right?" I say I do, so she orders herself some food. We talk amongst us, and I want is for the girl to go away. I want to crash and burn on my own, not in front of witnesses. I struggle through them whispering and looking at me while laughing, and when the waiter brings our food, I'm relieved. We eat. I think everything is going well despite the intrusion of safety bitch. I look at the clock on the wall and realize my brother will be there at any time to pick us up. I make a comment of that. Safety bitch gets up, hugs my date, and says she'll see us at school on Monday. She leaves. We talk for 10 minutes in the restaurant when I see my brother arrive. I call for the check. The waiter brings it, and it's $45. My face goes white. I'm pulling out my wad of cash and counting it out, but I only have $36. I was so embarrassed. My date pulls 20 out of her purse and adds it to my own. We pay and tip and are walking out, not even holding hands. She's laughing at me. I don't know what went wrong. I went through our meals again in my head, plus tax, plus drinks. I couldn't figure out what went wrong. How could this happen? We're riding back to her house, my brother driving. He's doing his best to embarrass me in front of her. She's laughing her ass off at my red-faced look of horror, as nothing is off limits to my brother back then. We drop her off, and she shakes my hand. Just shook it like we worked in an office somewhere. I go home with my brother. I don't say a word. He's teasing me still. I get home. My sister-in-law is asking how the date went, but there's like a sly smile on her face. I lie and say fine. I go to my room, change out of the horrid sweater vest, then go to bed. It's 3 a.m, and I can't figure out what went wrong. I'm struggling. I went over the cost of the meals again and again. It didn't make sense. Then I realized why you already realize. Safety bitch left and stuck me with the bill for her meal. It's 3 a.m. I call my date. She's still awake. I tell her that I finally figured out why I didn't have enough for dinner. She's laughing and tells me she already knew why. Her friend had asked to borrow money for dinner, and that was why safety bitch left without paying. But instead of telling me, my date thought it would be fun to watch me squirm. She said she never told me because she wanted to see how long it'd take me to figure out what went wrong. I didn't find it as funny as her. I found out 10 years later that my sister-in-law had been molested as a teen by her date, and she made me wear the sweater vest to guarantee I didn't get lucky. She did indeed sabotage me. My brother, who would have teased me anyway, did it more than usual because his wife, my sister-in-law, made him. She did not want me ruining some young girl's life by having sex as a teenager. Joke's on her. Me and my date ended up fighting over this a few days later, and to get back at her, I fucked her best friend, safety bitch, in the drafting room during shop class. I hate when people interfere in shit that doesn't concern them. My first date at the age of 16. I already went out with a girl before, but since I met her over mutual friends, this was the first time I had to get to know someone by going on a date. She seemed like a nice girl. We both were in our metal/rock music phase, and so had lots to talk and laugh about. One late evening in December, I got a message from her saying that she'd like to meet and drink a beer together. She actually called it a date. It was about -5 to 10 degrees Celsius, already dark. I had no one to drive me there, around 7 kilometers, and public transportation wasn't available at this hour. Like most 16-year-olds, I was naive and typical teenage boy desperate. That said, got some layers of clothing and went out secretly. At the time I arrived at the bar, my nose was near numb, and she was nowhere to be seen. I thought it would be rude to order a drink without her, so I told the waiter and sat down. After the first hour, he made me get out so he could have the seats for paying customers. Another hour later, she arrived by car with a wide and intense grin on her face. She suggested to go to another bar cause the one we were standing in front was too crowded. Since I just wanted to feel my body again, I agreed. After heating up, my mood began to get better, and we ordered our drinks. The conversation was lively, and back then I thought this would work out, and I could enjoy the rest of the night. Oh, I was wrong. Half through the first drink, she told me to go to her place because we could talk better there and her parents aren't home. Even teenage me knew what this means. So another walk, another 5-ish kilometer. After the first, she told me she was cold, so I gave her my coat. Then her neck was cold, so I gave her my scarf, SRSLY. This girl wasn't dressed for the weather. Again, half frozen, we reached her place and went in. As she said, no one else was home, and after some talk about generic stuff, we started to make out. At this point, 16-year-old me would have still called this date an astounding success, but like you may have already guessed, the front door opened in the exact second we were moving over to the giant couch in the living room. She panicked, took me to her room as fast as she could, pushed me in her cramped closet, and told me to hide in there. I swear I don't make this shit up. I only heard pretty loud and aggressive mumbling in there, but her parents seemed to know her plays already and found me after a mere minute or so. Needless to say, her father kicked me out, literally, while I still heard her mother arguing with the girl about how she girl brings another guy home every other week and she mother wouldn't pay for pregnancy tests anymore. I can't tell you people anymore what bugged me the most. That I couldn't get laid, that I just seemed to be disposable, or that I had to walk all the way home without my jacket or scarf. Another story. So, I went out for drinks with this girl who I've gone out with a bunch. We have a great time, have some beers, eat some nachos, and have a good time. After we finish up at the pub, she suggests we get a bottle of rum and some Slurpees and continue drinking in a local park. It's a nice night and all. Anyways, we drink the rum and hang out. I realize that she's getting pretty drunk and I should probably just walk her home. We weren't all that far from her house. As I am walking her home, we cut through a post-secondary campus and she just has a panic attack, like full-on hyperventilating and incomprehensible sort of panic attack. I try calming her down. She just keeps screaming at me to fuck off, but I'm not just going to leave her there, so I just sit there next to her. Out of nowhere, she just snaps and screams at me, "Get away from me," and she leaves her purse on the ground and runs away. I pick up her purse and go to track her down because she's really drunk and I just want her to get home. I find her collapsed in a corner. I say, "All right, let's get you back, go your house." She screams at me again. They're following US. Well, at this point I don't know what's going on, but I'm determined that I'm not letting her be by herself at this moment and try to coax her into going home again. We continue walking, but she's got full-on crazy eyes and is muttering about spies being around us and that we are being watched. As we continue this journey, she starts screaming at me. "You don't know what it's like to be gang raped." I know. Now keep in mind we are now walking down a street with people around. I ask her to calm down. She grabs me by my face and says, "You need to follow me if you want to live." I tell her she needs to calm down again and maybe suggest that I might actually have to call for medical assistance. Well, she goes further off the deep end at this point, starts shoving me around, almost pushes me into traffic. My glasses did come off and fly into traffic and get destroyed at this point. Eventually, I do convince her to head home. However, I was berated the entire time and she keeps screaming crazy shit at me. As I am almost at her house, she grabs my face and says, "What's my name?" I respond with her name, and she says, "That's not my name. I am Alexandra Romanoff." Say it. I don't want to get murdered, so I say her name back and she keeps making me say her new name. Eventually she grabs my face again and says, "Know my name if you want to live. Live it, breath it, speak it." At this point we are finally at her house. She tells me that I am going to die on my way home and that it was meant to be. She got into her house. I went home. I was on an online dating site for about 5 months. I've went on several dates and some didn't go past phone calls. The one thing I learned from online dating is everyone has a story, everyone. Some are deal breakers and some are just strange. Here's one of my strange stories, and the worst yet. His blue eyes, blonde hair, and athletic body profile picture caught my attention. We chatted through the site briefly before exchanging phone numbers. His deep, strong voice matched his 6 feet 3 inches body as seen in his pictures perfectly. We talked and texted every day for about a week and even exchanged a couple of pictures. Normal headshots of us at work. Phone conversations. I learned that he was a huge Florida Gators fan. He talked about them constantly. He said he has many Gator figures just randomly placed around his house and can tell if they've been moved or touched. Red flag number 1. I told him I wasn't much of a college football fan, but if I were cheering for any team, it would be the Georgia Bulldogs, of course. Many of my friends attended UGA. He tells me that they suck and told me I am now a Gators fan. Red flag number 2. Our first and last date. We met up at a bowling alley that was in between both our houses. I was there first and noticed him right away as he walked in. He walked up to me, picked me up, swung me around, and kissed me on my lips. Thoughts in my head. What the hell is this guy doing? And he better not kiss me again. We sat and talked for a little bit, then he said he has a surprise for me. He pulls out a little bag from his back pocket and gives it to me. Inside the bag was a Gator shirt and matching panties. Okay, the shirt I didn't mind, but what's the deal with the Gator panties? Seriously? This guy is getting more strange by the minute. Red flag number 3. As if that wasn't awkward enough, he asked me if I could change into my panties and shirt in the bathroom and take a picture for him. I'm an OU freak. I just looked at him like he was crazy and said, "You're joking, right?" He said, Well, if you don't want to do it here, then you can come to my house. I only live 15 minutes up the street. Okay, clearly this guy is some type of crazy, and I just want to go home. Now wow. Deal breaker. I go to the bathroom and called my sister-in-law to tell her to call me in 3 minutes. She's reserved for situations like this. When she called, I acted as though they needed me to come over to watch my niece because they're babysitter. Cancelled last minute. My excuse every time. I apologized to him and told him I couldn't take his gift. He insisted I take it and made plans to see me the following weekend. He texted me that night to ask if I tried on the panties yet. I blocked his number entirely after that. Incidentally, the gator panties are my favorite at-home panties for lounging. They are the most comfortable panties I have ever worn. Well, this is a combination of worst date/best date. Read on, there is a surprise ending. This was back in the 1980s, when I was in my early 20s. I was recently out of university, had a great job in the Philadelphia suburbs, and life was good. I met a girl, Debbie, with whom I was absolutely smitten. Pretty, girl-next-door looks, nice slender figure, classy, great personality, with a resemblance to a well-known swimsuit model at the time, Elle Macpherson. Intelligent also. I got to know her through some moonlighting I was doing at a local college, teaching math, where she worked in the evening school. There was just one hitch, though. Debbie was a bit unpredictable and flaky. I would ask her to meet for lunch or make some other innocent request, and never get straight answers, and usually get turned down. I attributed it to the fact that she was not sure about me. Nevertheless, I pursued her over many months, gently and lightly, a coffee here and long conversation there, in an attempt to win her over. I was not without my own good attributes. I was good-looking, although with an ethnic, non-WASP background, a graduate of the Ivy League, and already had a management position at the tender age of 24. After about 6 months of being friends, I decided to try for a home run. It was January, and a Broadway show was coming to Philly on tour. I spent a princely amount on 2 orchestra seats, center section, row 15, and asked her to be my date. She agreed. The show date was a Saturday night in mid-February, 6 weeks hence. 5 weeks pass. It's now 9 days prior to the show. Debbie calls me, and here is how the conversation proceeded. Debbie, Jonathan, about the Broadway show, something has come up. Some of my sorority sisters rented a condo and are going skiing in Killington in 2 weekends, and I haven't seen them for ages. I hope you don't mind if I cancel on you and go skiing instead? Killington, Vermont is the best place to ski if you have the time to drive. Me stunned, then fuming inside. Oh, well, of course. I don't mind. I understand that sometimes things come up. Trying to stop the steely tone of my voice from going through the phone line. Debbie replies cheerily. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you understand. I'll take a rain check, okay? Bye. Click. I slammed down the phone, trembling. Damn. I was so angry that I was flushed for over an hour. My roommate asked, "What's wrong?" But I was so upset I couldn't speak. I'm thinking, rain check hell. I wouldn't take her to a picnic, much less an expensive show, ever again. I was raised to never do what Debbie had done to me. Never, ever dump a person or a date because a better one comes around. It's a poor reflection on character. The only acceptable excuse for backing out or changing plans is an emergency. Back to the story. Who do I ask now? It was a mere 9 days before the show, and any girl I asked would know, instantly, that she was playing second fiddle. Nevertheless, I called a girl I knew at work, and she agreed to go. At least the tickets wouldn't be wasted. Now jump ahead 1 more week, to Wednesday, 3 days before the show. Debbie calls again that evening. Hi Jonathan, she says. I don't know if you heard, but a warm front hit New England, and it's been raining at Killington all week. All the snow has melted. A pregnant pause. So I'm not going skiing this weekend after all, and I'm free to go with you to Les Mis. I stared at the phone, stunned. If my blood had boiled the previous week, when Debbie jilted me, it double boiled this time. What unmitigated gall. Did she think that I had not made other arrangements? Did she think I was stupid? That I would cancel a date with someone else merely because she had changed her mind again? Was she really that naive? I was raised to be a gentleman, however, so I took a deep breath, regained my composure, and answered politely. Debbie, I said, sorry, but I made other plans. It wouldn't be right if I broke them. 1 more deep breath. Sorry it didn't work out. I'll be seeing you around. I never asked her out again anywhere, and frankly put an end to all but casual contact. Yes, she had many positive attributes, but I had learned that she was either A, utterly clueless, or B, horribly self-centered. One friend blasted me for not continuing to try, but I think the truth was B. She knew that her looks and surface sweetness, together, were her best assets. And she had learned how to wield them very effectively with men, even driving them crazy and getting away with it. And I learned an important lesson about women and humanity at a relatively tender age. Beauty and sweetness do not cancel out a lack of character. Sometimes the one who seems most perfect is, after scratching the surface, terribly imperfect. This was a hard lesson to learn, because Debbie didn't appear to have a mean bone in her body, or even an ounce of arrogance or self-centeredness. Yet, that is exactly what her actions revealed. Actions speak louder than words, my dad told me, and what a lesson. As for my date that evening, we had a marvelous time. We were both elegantly dressed, ate a delicious dinner, saw a fabulous show, and then danced into the wee hours. While this second gal and I were just friends, and never were romantic, I can say it was the most memorable old-fashioned date I've ever had in my life. Postscript. Offline from Quora, I told this story to others recently, and they have pushed back on my assessment about Debbie. What if one of her friends was undergoing a personal crisis and needed Debbie, and Debbie just didn't bother to tell me? What if Debbie had begged off going when asked, because of the prior commitment to spend the evening with me, but one of the friends pleaded based on their years of friendship? Okay, I'll acknowledge those possibilities. But it's what Debbie tried the second time she called that made this story outrageous and worth repeating. Sure, we've all been jilted and left holding the bag. But calling back and thinking that I had not invited someone else? Had I been in her shoes, this is what I would have done had there been a good reason to cancel. First, I would have sent a card in addition to the first phone call of apology, to reinforce my sincerity. It would have said, "John, sorry, I was really looking forward to the show over these past weeks. I hope you have a good time without me, and I'll look forward to hearing about the show when I'm back from Killington." Second, I would never have called the second time and dared to think that the tickets were going unused. Had I wanted the fellow to know I'd canceled the Killington trip, a note or a letter would have sufficed. It would have been brief. "John, didn't go to Killington after all. Drat that rain. It pains me to not see Les Mis. Enjoy your time, and I'll be thinking about you on Saturday." Third, I would have been sensitive enough to realize that the fellow might be miffed, hurt, or angry at being jilted. So, I would have purchased tickets of my own for the following weekend, to any show, even just community theater, and during the first phone call invited him. It would have been some recompense to prove to him that his efforts were not unappreciated. Now these actions would have revealed a woman with true character. The Debbie in this story was bereft of that very trait. This happened about 2 years ago, when I was in second year of my college. I still can't believe the events unfolded at that one hell of a night. I met Sneha on Instagram. I posted on Instagram about how glaciers were depleting due to global warming, stuff like that. She liked and commented on my post about how she couldn't agree more. She then slided in my DMs, and we started talking casually. We both were Delites and engineering students. It had been 3 days of us chatting when we shared our numbers, and about 1 week when we agreed to meet at her favorite restaurant/canteen, which was on her campus. I didn't know how she looked like, no DP, so it was kind of a blind date. I had to ride my bike for an hour in traffic and rain to reach our rendezvous point, but still I was 5 minutes early. She technically lived there, still she was 30 minutes late. She was also not picking up my calls. I was about to leave when a pretty lady with a big, beautiful smile came and sit across me. "Sneha, hi." "Me, Sneha." "Sneha, yup." My heart skipped the beat. She was the cutest girl I had ever seen. "Sneha, so here we are. I am very sorry I have to keep you waiting. Actually, I went out shopping, and then it started raining, and you know rain is equivalent to huge-ass traffic in Delhi." "Me, mesmerized, it's okay. By the way, you are looking amazing." "Sneha." Teasing. "Well, thank you, but sorry I can't say that for you." "Me." "Sneha." Laughing. "I am joking, you're also looking cute." "Me cute?" "Sneha." "Oh, you boys okay, handsome, happy." Everything was going so well, but I didn't know why people were looking at us from corner of their eyes, some of them straight-ass staring. Haven't they seen a couple before, I thought to myself. But I kept that thought aside as I was enjoying Sneha's company so much. She was the classic girl next door, bubbly and sweet. But then something changed. "Me, so what should we order?" "Sneha." Disoriented, "Huh. Me, what happened?" I saw she was looking at the group of girls at the far corner of canteen. One of the girl was crying, and other girls were trying to soothe her. Me, you know that girl. Sneha, yeah, she is Mega, one of my best friend. Me, what? Shouldn't you go and ask what happened to her? Sneha, I know what happened. Someone close to her died in an accident today. Me, losing my shit. Wait, why are you not with her then? We can postpone this date for later. You should be with her. I will be totally okay with it. Sneha, no, this is more important. Me, nah. I really think you should be with her. Sneha, you don't understand. This was my last wish. Me, last wish, I don't get it. Sneha, I can't be with her because the dead person she is crying over is me. I started laughing. Me, nice joke, Sneha. If you are dead, then who is sitting in front of me, your ghost? Sneha, dead serious. Well, not a ghost, but my echo. You seemed a really nice guy, Sarthak, and I was longing to meet you. But on my way here I had a huge accident. Me, Sneha, but I think my last wish was to meet you, and that's why I came here as an echo of my soul. Me, why you are really a good actor, and you? Sneha, why do you think people are staring at us? Me, because we are looking cute. Sneha, nope, that's not the case. I was still thinking she was joking, but something was really off. People were behaving very strangely around us. An old man behind counter was also peering occasionally at us from his horn-rimmed glasses. I stood up and went over to him. Before I could say anything, he started speaking. Old man, are you all right, kiddo? Me, yup, why did you ask? Man, because you are talking and laughing to yourself. Me, okay, I get it, you all are pranking me. Man, pranking, what the hell are you talking about? Me, did she pay you? Man, who paid me? Me, pointing at Sneha, that girl over there. Man, there is no girl there. Me, frustrated Okale. I asked the other guy sitting across my booth. He said the same thing, that there was no girl. I went back to Sneha. She was smiling at me all this time. Me, ha ha ha. This was hilarious, now cut it off. Sneha, I am really not pranking and I think it's time, so please just spend some time with me. Me, time for what? Sneha, of me going back. Me, freaking out, okay. Everyone, you guys were great. Look, I am shaking from fear. Now cut the chase. I know you all are pranking me. Everyone gaped at me for a second, and then returned to their usual rituals. Me, HUYY. I am not joking around. I am very serious. Nice try, I will give you that. But now it's time to stop. It's getting too far. Guy, buddy, what's wrong with you? No one is pranking you. Are you high or something, as I saw you were talking to yourself? Me, I was not talking to myself. I was talking to her. I turned around, but she was not there anymore. Me, wait. WTF. Guy, bro, you are high as fuck. Go get some sleep, buddy. Wait, that couldn't be. I was not insane. I went over to the booth where Mega was sitting, whose crying had turned into sobbing now. Her friends were still trying to calm her. I asked one of the girls standing next to her. Me, excuse me, why she is crying? Girl, she is in shock. She just came to know that her friend died in an accident. Me, let me guess her name, Sneha. Girl, yes, how do you know? Me, because she just told me she died today in car accident. Girl, what? Every girl on the booth started gawking at my face. Me, pointing to Mega, you did well, girl. You are a good actor, and looking at your performance, anyone would come to think that Sneha is really dead. Everyone. Me, but there is big loophole in your story. If Sneha has been in an accident, what are you doing here? You should be in hospital by now. As far as I know, you are her best friend. Mega, angrily, listen, dumbass, none of it matters to you, but we don't have any vehicle, so we booked cab, which is running late because it's raining cats and dogs outside. Me, Mega, and who the fuck are you even to judge our friendship with Sneha? Me, really scared, so she is really dead, but I was just talking, maybe she was telling truth. Mega, get out of our face, jerk. There was pain in my chest, like someone stabbed me in my heart. Sneha was dead, and her echo really came to meet me. It was her last wish to see me, but I didn't believe her. I could have spent some more time with her. She wanted that, and from nowhere I started shedding tears. I was throwing sorries and apologies at those girls when a hand grabbed me by my shoulder. I turned around to see Sneha. She was giving me her same glorious smile. I hugged her. Me, still skeptical, you are alive, right? I am so relieved. Wait, girls, can you see her? Or am I still? Mega, what are you talking about, idiot? There is no one. Girl, chuckling. Oh, come on, cut him some slack. Yes, we can see her, Sarthak, because she is not dead. Me, relieved, so you all were pranking me. I was right all this time. Everyone in harmony, yes. Me, to Sneha, well, it's kind of outrageous. Who the hell prank her partner on very first date? And also such an elaborate one. Sneha, sorry Sarthak, but I was totally against this. These guys made me. They said it would be fun and a practice for our coming improv competition. I thought it wouldn't work and you would caught us. But these guys planned it so well. I am very sorry that you got so scared. Me, and started crying. I think I had a very good impression in front of your whole friends circle today. I really came out as chicken. Sneha, quite opposite of that Sarthak. You came out as a sensitive and emotional boy. And girls love these qualities in guys. Me wait really. Sneha, laughing, no just lying to make you feel good. But you were hilarious crying like baby, if it helps. Me wow. I would like to share my experience with you on this one. A few years ago, I've registered on a dating site out of curiosity. I exchanged a few words on the internet with this guy, let's call him Jack. We agreed on a date, and he offered to pick me up at home. He's a gentleman, I thought, very excited to meet him. I waited for him 15 minutes in front of my house, when he called me telling me he can't find the address, and that's more convenient if I could walk and meet him in another place. I accepted, since the other place was still close from my house, 15-minute distance. Except that he called me again, telling me to get down the street, then up the street, then down again. Okay, another girl in my place would have abandoned the project by now. I could see a red flag myself, but I'm very persistent, and eventually, after half an hour of going up and down the road, I could spot him in his car, a convertible Corvette. He didn't get out of the car to say hi. Another red flag. Once I got into his car, he didn't apologize for being late, but asked me bluntly, "You hungry?" I wasn't. "It's okay, while I'm eating, you can grab a beer or something." While he was driving, he turned his head after every single girl that we passed by. So many red flags that I stopped counting them. At the restaurant, while we were waiting for his pizza, he kept talking about himself and all the sexy girlfriends he had. He also showed me pictures with them. Nude pictures. I felt embarrassed, but he told me that I shouldn't be, since he's a photographer, so he can spot beauty everywhere. It's his job. He offered to take some pictures of me too. Nude, of course. I was saved by the waiter, who arrived with the pizza. But when he had to pay for it, surprise, he didn't have enough money. So he asked me to pay the rest. Not to lend him money, to pay. Once again I felt embarrassed for his lack of manners and sensibility, so I paid. I even gave a tip to the waiter. But wait, the best is still to come. He actually took the tip I have given to the waiter, in front of the waiter, and said he needed to buy himself a pack of cigarettes. Crazy, huh? I'm still laughing when I think about... Wait, it's not finished yet. Later on, he didn't bother to ask me if I smoked, he just puffed the smoke in my nose. Then he said, "You're cute, let's have a walk," while he grabbed my hand, trying to cuddle, like we've been lovers forever. Every phase of this date was so crazy and unexpected, that I was under the shock most of the time. I just didn't have time to realize what was actually going on. Only at home, when I called a friend, we laughed and she confirmed that there are some crazy people out there in the dating world. We were still laughing when the phone rang. It was Jack, inviting me out again. I politely turned him down. "Why?" he asked me in a genuine voice. "Did something go wrong yesterday?" So I had this crush on a girl, which I've had for quite some time. But we rarely spoke to each other. We'll call her H. H and I share only one class together, and to my luck, I get a seat close to her. Eventually, her and I start talking more and more. Over Facebook, we started talking a lot. We probably exchanged over 500 messages there, and topics ranged from school to personal lives. We exchanged a bunch of secrets and got to know each other pretty well. Anyways, we are talking about her parents one day, and how they are somewhat overprotective. She makes comments on how they wouldn't let her do this and that. She then tells me that they established a dating age for her at 16, which she is. So the next day we start talking again like usual. Things lead to the next, and we decide to have lunch together. Over lunch, I teach her things that I know on the piano. It went well, and we decided to have lunch 3 more times. Things continue to escalate, and I'll point out that it wasn't always me that started the conversations. It was maybe 1/3 her, 2/3 me. Anyways, this happens over a month. So we talk again one day about finals and how we're going to study. When she says that we should study together, this was a huge green light for me, and we study the next day. We meet up after school and study. We really didn't study at all. We just talked back and forth. I made one joke that made her cry of laughter. It went really well. So, a week passes, and we make another date to study. Same thing happens, and we don't study again. Midway through the session, I inform her that I have a big secret to tell her, but I am unsure if I should. She wants me to, and near the end I tell her. Basically, I talked about this really pretty girl that I liked, and how we have been hanging out a lot recently. She's giving me all the signs, etc. It was super obvious that I was talking about her. I then concluded with should I tell her or not. I also asked H if she had been in the same situation as well. She replied, yes, tell her, and yeah, I am in the same situation right now. So, I ask her out, and she says yes. She gives me her phone number, and all goes well. School ends, and during the month of June, we exchange somewhere around 800 texts. Each week we try and schedule our date, but we are both very busy, and we were unable to get to it until last night. So last night, she didn't get off work till 5, so we had to see a late movie at 7. I really tried to push for dinner or ice cream before, so we wouldn't just sit in front of a screen for 2 hours. But claimed that she didn't want to, because she wanted to save her money for college. I told her I'd pay, but whatever. So no dinner, just a movie. We meet up, start hitting it off again, I'm making her laugh, etc. We go to the concessions, where I buy popcorn. She said that she really didn't want anything. Whatever. So we go into the movie. Edge of Tomorrow. About a quarter of the way through the movie, I decide to make my move. I go for the arm around the shoulder. But she shot me down hard. My arm literally was on her head for about 20 seconds before she turned to me and shook her head. That nearly killed me. I was astonished. I immediately stopped eating the popcorn, stopped thinking about the movie and everything. I was shocked. So we sit there, watching the movie for the next hour or whatever. I can't even laugh at the jokes or anything going on in it. The movie ends, and we go back to the lobby. There we sit down and talk for about 10 minutes before our parents come to get us. Small chit-chat until the last 4 minutes. I say, you didn't like the whole arm thing? And she tells me that she thought that the date was to get to know each other better. What the hell? I say that I am so confused, that she gave me all the signs. We talked for so long, went on 2 study dates, 3 lunch dates, exchanged over 1,500 messages, etc. I then specifically mentioned the whole secret thing, where I confessed my affection to her, and she said yes. She said that she was shocked that I had asked, and didn't know that I was coming at her with romantic intentions the whole time. She then said that she didn't know what to say, and said yes to spare me pain. I am pretty pissed at this point. Pissed off, confused, shocked, shaking. I go into great detail about how it's better to be upfront about it, saying that telling me all of this now is the worst situation to be in. Anyways, our parents arrive. I tell her that we can still be friends, and she agrees, and we go our separate ways. What the hell, guys and gals? Did I misinterpret signs? She lead me on so dang hard. I think I feel terrible because of the anticipation as well. Waiting a month for the date, and thinking that it would go so well. I really thought I was going to date this girl for a long time. I had things planned out after the first date. I knew what I was going to get her for her birthday, etc. I'm stunned, shocked, astonished. I feel terrible, and am still trying to comprehend all of this. Was I right? Was she right? I dunno. It's over now. It was with my ex. As a couple, we had become estranged. I couldn't make sense of it. He claimed he was having business issues. I was trying to be patient and understanding. He called me up as we hadn't seen each other in a while, and said he wanted to take me out to dinner. We could use a fun night out. I agreed and was looking forward to actually having fun and seeing him, since things had not been very fun over the past couple of months. In preparation for the evening of fun, I chose a dress I had purchased when we were on holiday together, wore sexy lingerie, made sure I looked my best, and was ready to go at the appointed time. When he arrived to pick me up, he said, "Oh, you're ready to go." I said, "Yes, I know how you don't like to be kept waiting. Have you arranged the designated driver?" Him. "No, I am really tired and have had an awful week. I am not in the best of moods, so I am not drinking." Me. "Okay, that's fine. Shall we go?" In the car on the way to the restaurant, I was curious about how his week was and what was going on, was trying to cheer him up. He complained of the business issues he had been continually complaining about over the past few months, despite my thinking, so far this is not fun. I wasn't ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I loved him, I could be understanding. It was a beautiful night that night, mid-July, gentle breeze. In a quaint village outside city limits, with outdoor dining on softly lit patios. When we arrived, it took some time to get parking. His son called, and I learned at that moment, his son was participating in sports event the following day. Asked if I could participate and join in the event. He made excuses for why that wouldn't be possible. When we arrived at the restaurant, we were seated at a corner table. It was busy. He was avoiding me in conversation and kept glancing over at a table of 4 women who were sitting a few tables away. He was nervous, fidgety. I remember him picking at an ingrown hair on his neck, obsessively. I took hold of his hand gently and held it for a minute, asked him if everything was all right. He pulled his hand away and went back to it. Then his phone rang. Normally if we were out and his phone rang, unless it was his son, he would ignore it. Nope, he picked it up, started talking, and then got up from the table and left to continue the phone call. When he returned, he announced who had called and why, even though I didn't ask. Meanwhile, he kept glancing over at this table of 4 women. Then their table got up to leave, and there was one woman in the group who was staring into his eyes while walking by with a big knowing smile on her face. The women left. I considered it was a random stranger walking by with a smile. We were still there, except now he was in rush to get the meal over with and he and I out of there. I wanted to enjoy the warm summer night with the man I loved, and so far, I was with the man I loved, although I was not enjoying the warm summer night. I was trying to make the best of a not ideal evening. When the meal was over, I asked if we could walk around the town, grab a coffee. He asked that we have coffee close to my house instead. I agreed, so off we went. I grabbed us both a coffee while he waited in the car, and the next moment, we were sitting in his car outside my front door, 2 hours on the dot from pickup to drop off. I invited him in and he rebuffed me, claiming he had to get up early for his son's sporting event, although forgetting earlier in the evening. He had told me he was only going for the event itself, which started in the afternoon. I leaned in to kiss him, and he rebuffed that, saying I knew you were going to do that. I said, WTF? If you aren't attracted to me anymore, and don't want a relationship, just say so. Why ask me to go out and have fun? He said, no, it's not that. I am just tired and in a bad mood. I left, and that was the last time he and I had a date. Turns out the woman in the restaurant who walked by was his married affair partner, who had been fucking him on the sly throughout our entire 4-year, purportedly exclusive relationship and her marriage. All of which I discovered after ending the relationship. In my book, that took top spot for the worst date ever. This happened to me about a month ago. I was sitting on a couch in a big coffee place and studying, minding my own business. Suddenly this guy starts talking to me, and mind you, I thought he was gorgeous. He was my type, wearing a put-together outfit, had dark skin and really beautiful eyes with luscious lashes. He introduced himself as Ben and told me he was from Cape Verde. He had overheard me speaking Spanish with my mother and became interested in me. Conversation was going all right, and he bought me a juice at the coffee shop. Then we get into the topic of feminism and the roles of a man and a woman in a relationship. Do you think there are certain duties for women and men in a relationship? He asked. I was raised with divorced parents, so I've seen my mother do laundry as well as renovating, and I've seen my dad do the dishes but also paint the kitchen. I don't think there are any required things for the man to do that the woman can't, and vice versa. He looked a little skeptical. Swedish men have a problem with being very feminine. Seeing a man out with his children in their stroller bugs me. It should be the woman doing it. As a man, I don't want to be the one doing the dishes or folding the laundry, a woman's job. I was stunned. I really didn't know these people existed in the capital of such a developed country like Sweden. He lived in the central and pretty wealthy part of Stockholm. He thought men with long hair was too feminine. I had not met anyone this backwards in my life. Not knowing what to answer, I asked more questions because now I almost found it funny from the shock. He started talking about how women should behave and dress. Red flag. I was wearing your regular t-shirt and jeans, and he said to my face that if I would be wearing cleavage and a short skirt, he wouldn't have respect for me. He said he wouldn't be able to have a conversation, person to person, if I wasn't covered up. Alarms were going off in my head. A man telling me he likes the way I dress because I'm covered up and therefore earned his respect makes me want to strip my clothes off just to annoy him. I let him go on, barely arguing back, but not too much because I know it would be a waste of my own energy. We all know that people with that kind of mindset won't be convinced easily. I just let it be and enjoyed my entertainment. I want to come home to a clean house, my wife waiting for me while she's already tucked the kids in and has food ready for me. Then he told me something that baffled me and actually made me laugh in his face. A man doing the dishes or other female tasks is so emasculating, I even believe it's something that could turn a man homosexual. I was shocked. I laughed. I thought, this must be a prank. Hidden camera. They'll bust in any second. Nope. No joke. You believe that a man doing the dishes can turn him gay? I asked, too shocked to believe it. Yes. Let's just say I never texted him back. I'm 15 minutes late for a date in the peninsula, at a bar I've never been to in a city I've never been in. The guy I'm meeting seems like a functional human being, one with a good job, at Stanford, and a real, legitimate LinkedIn. We've only talked online, through an app called Tinder. I'm wearing a blue dress and heels, and I've spent more time on my hair and makeup than I'd like to admit. This is my first date since I kicked out the husbeast in May. I walk into the bar expecting to see him, but it's totally empty except for the bartender. I sit, pulling out my phone. Can I get a gin and juice, please? I'm taking my first sip and debating on text messaging him when my date throws open the front door and strides in. His man heels clack on the tile, and he sidles in next to me, all business. He's significantly shorter than I am, which is a real feat, as I top out just over 5 foot. Red flag number 1. He swore he was 5'4". He orders a drink. Do you want to go sit down? He asks, gesturing to the booths lining the back wall. I grab my drink and follow him. He skips the pleasantries and fakes a yawn to stretch his arm up and over my shoulders. He's asking me some vaguely esoteric questions. Picture a box. Describe it to me. How big is it? What is it made of? And I'm sucking up gin through a straw that's decidedly too small when he reaches his hand out and places it possessively on my knee. He runs his fingers in tight, concentric circles. It's an intimate move, one you'd initiate with someone you've known, and probably seen naked on more than one occasion. I'm feeling decidedly uncomfortable. My legs are crossed, and so are my arms. So, he looks over at me with a lilting grin on his face. Have you ever had sex in a hearse? Excuse me? I choke through the gin, at an utter loss for words. Is this what passes for dating in 2013? I stand abruptly. I've definitely got to pee. I make a beeline for the bathroom with my phone already in my hand. Ollie, you better fucking pick up, I mutter, reaching for the door handle. The rings seem to last forever. Come on, come on, come on. There's a brief silence, then a confused, hello? Oh, thank God, Oliver. I need an organ donation call, stat. Oliver is my supervising embalmer and one of my best friends. Without missing a beat, he laughs. Bad date? You have no idea. This is the worst. No problem. I'll call you back in 4 minutes. Change my name in your phone. I love you, adore you, you're the light of my life, I exclaim before hanging up. I change his contact info to the name of my funeral home, look at myself wide-eyed in the mirror, and reach for the door handle. My date is still sitting in the corner when I approach. Do you want another drink? He asks. I'd really like to take you to a private beach around here. I can't imagine anything I'd like less than to be completely alone with this man. It sounds like it could quickly become vaguely day-trapey. Before I open my mouth to answer, the phone rings. I pick it up, mouthing, work sorry. I head for the door, and he follows closely, eavesdropping. California Organ Donation Network, intones Oliver. Is this Heather Hernandez? We've worked with you before, and it looks like you're the go-to person for this funeral home. I've got a full donation for tonight that needs to be done in your prep facility. Long bones, tissue, and skin. So it's gonna be a long night, is what you're telling me? Probably 8 hours, at a guess. I manage to keep a straight face through the rest of the conversation. As I hang up, I shake my head at my date, looking crestfallen. So sorry, but I've actually got to head back to the East Bay. A funeral director is always on call, Yano? He walks over to his car and slams the door, tires screeching as he pulls out. I've stopped counting the red flags because there's too many of them. As I head back into the bar for another drink, I wonder why I put so much effort into blowing him off. Next sucky date, I'll be quick to just tell the dude to quit being a creep. One time I joined a dating site, and I ended up with 6 dates in about a week's time with 3 different guys, something that otherwise usually didn't happen to me in a year's time. I was recently laid off from a 13 years career as a system engineer, and had a nice severance with some free time for the first time in my life. I was exploring hobbies and new careers options, and had seen a relationship both kind of peter out due to him being a workaholic, and then end explosively, due to a betrayal of a common friend, also losing a few close friends in the process. So it was a time in my life where I was willing to make some big changes and try something new. I had always considered mini golf a good first date, as it wasn't very strenuous like hiking can be, but allowed us to talk more than a loud night club or movie would. It was also a daytime date where I could meet someone, so it was a pretty safe dating environment. Finally, I believed that I could learn a lot about a guy playing a game of mini golf. For example, see whether he automatically got my ball out of a water trap or if he hesitated or expected me to take care of it. This guy, Michael, contacted me on the dating site. He happened to be a software engineer at the same corporation I had formerly worked at. It was one of the biggest companies in town. However, unlike me, his department had not been bought out and he wasn't laid off. He was about 7 or so years older than I, late 40s, and had a nice head of grayish hair. We exchanged photos, as well as chatted online or the phone some before setting up a date. I knew he had a good job related to computers, and we shared a lot of the same hobbies: tabletop gaming, video gaming, hiking, etc. When I was younger, I had always thought I would marry a man named Michael/Mike, as it was my favorite guy name. Michael liked my mini golf idea, as he told me he did some regular golfing in his spare time, and he had a favorite golf course, which was attached to a mini golf course. So we set a mid-afternoon date on his day off. I arrived at the golf course a few minutes early and start walking through the parking lot to the front gate. Walking towards me is someone who looks like Michael, walking fast, head down and a bag of clubs over his shoulder and more in his hand. As I pass this person, I stop, smile and ask, "Michael?" He barely nods his head, keeps walking and says nothing. I turn on my heels and walk after him. I'm thinking, what happened? Did he decide to bail out of the date and I caught him before he could get to his car? But I ask, "You are Michael, right?" By this time we are both at his car and he has opened his trunk. He drops the bag of clubs in his trunk and he drops in the other clubs in his hand, keeping just one. I think it was a putter. He still has barely acknowledged me, and I notice he is still avoiding eye contact. He is looking straight down and won't turn his head. I'm thinking, oh boy, I think he is running away, but again I ask, "You are Michael, right?" And he nods more, acting sort of annoyed that I didn't accept the first nod as confirmation. I don't know if I caught him bolting or what is going on, so I try to make small talk. "You look like your picture. I thought that was you." He turns without making eye contact and starts to walk back towards the mini golf gate with his head down. "I got here early to hit some balls around," he says, and I turn on my heels again to try to keep up with him as he determinedly walks back to the business gate. I'm almost running to keep up with him. Admittedly, he's about a foot taller than I am, but that's not so unusual. What is unusual is that I get the distinct feeling he thinks he's in a hostage situation, and he's trying to get the date over as fast as possible. I'm about ready to tell him, obviously this was a mistake somehow. We really don't have to go through with the date, and we can just go our own separate ways right now. However, it was all I could do to try to keep up with him, much less get that whole thing out while he stayed in one spot. We get to the front gate, and he purchases 2 mini golf passes, and the guy behind counter shows him a box of colored mini golf balls. We each take one. Then the guy behind the counter moves down to the club selection area and says for us to each to select a mini golf club. At this point, Michael says he is going to use the real golf club he brought, rather than the miniature golf club, and he lifts it into the air. The guy behind the counter stifles a laugh and shrugs, saying, "Okay." I don't know anything about real golf, but even I can see how different the big head, mostly colored plastic mini golf club is to the sleek titanium Real golf club Michael was carrying. I take a club matching the color of ball I took, and I decide this might be the world's fastest game of mini golf, as he might just be trying to get through this date as quickly as possible. Still, there was no reason not to try to enjoy ourselves, so I relaxed and just started making the usual small talk. Any question I asked Michael was met with a long pause, and then usually a yes or no answer, although I was asking open-ended questions. I fought my natural instinct to fill the awkward silences with nervous laughter and comments. At the same time, I tried to balance my questions to him with my own information. However, it still felt like I was grilling a captive. Michael still hadn't made eye contact with me, and his head was perpetually bent without turning his head to the left or right. I again debated about asking him if he really wanted to go through with this, but he already seemed so embarrassed. We approached the first hole. He gestured for me to go first, so I put down my ball and hit it. It goes partly towards the hole. Michael puts down his ball and poses for a swing, and totally misses the ball. I immediately stifle a laugh, keeping up the small talk, trying not to notice that he completely missed the ball with his tiny sleek putter. He motions for me to go again, and I stop and ask if he wanted to go again first, as his ball was the furthest. I stopped myself in mid-sentence, choking down the words, and approached my ball, casually hitting it, and it goes in the hole. I picked my mini golf ball out of the hole, cringing as he prepares to go again. This time I remain silent, not to break his concentration, when he is preparing to hit the ball, and I continue to auto-silence myself each time he gets up to swing from then on. Michael hits the ball, too hard this time, and it goes zooming off the green and into a different mini golf feature. He's obviously red-faced now as he chases after the ball, picks it up and puts it down on the course, closest to where it left it. He takes another swing and misses the ball. Par is only 3, but he immediately swings again and hits the ball. It ricochets off the cement rim of the course and goes the opposite direction. He slinks off to retrieve his ball, stopping at the stand next to our course to mark par/3 for his score on the little paper sheet and a 2 for me. I started to suggest that maybe he would want to swap his golf club for the mini golf club before we went on to the next hole, and he just shook his head no. The other 17 holes went pretty much the same for us. I played my usual game except that I hit a hole in one on one of the holes. Michael either couldn't hit the mini golf ball, or tore up the turf, or hit the ball so hard that it wildly ricocheted off the course and onto another one. He obviously had no control of the mini golf ball with the real golf club he had, but he wasn't going to admit defeat by swapping it out for a regular mini golf club. He never made eye contact with me and never moved his head side to side, even to check out shots he would set up, which was another reason his shots never got near the holes. A couple of times I called him Mike, and he immediately corrected me that his name was Michael. I'm usually good at small talk, at drawing shy people out of their shells, making them comfortable, and getting people to talk. However, nothing I tried really worked with Michael for very long. I figured he was just trying to get what had to be a miserable experience over as fast as he could, so I tried to move things along myself. I did ask Michael some of my usual dating questions, and he gave me some brief answers, like, what do you like to do in your free time? He said playing Xbox. I actually had played that with friends before many times, and so I asked if he played with friends, and he answered that he had no friends. This kind of shocked me as I'm a very social person, so I asked about what Xbox games he played. It seemed they were mostly shooters. He had also said he liked board games on his profile, so I asked about which ones he liked. He named a few of the Euros, but said he didn't know anyone to play them with. He never really opened up, partly because every hole he had the constant failure at hitting the ball, pretty much taking par on every hole after a few times of missing it or whacking it out of the course. I tried to be as friendly as I could be and not notice him failing each hole, as I knew he was getting more and more embarrassed by not being able to hit any ball properly, or even getting one eventually into the hole. When my ball landed in the water trap, he seemed unsure what to do. Get it for me as a gentleman. Plus he was a foot taller, and he could reach it without getting wet, or let me struggle to get it myself. When I saw him hesitate, I good naturally went in after it myself, getting my tennis shoes wet. I thought it was the least I could do to keep moving things forward. Finally, the game of mini golf came to an end, and as we walked to turn in my club, I thanked him for the game, exclaiming how much fun it was, carefully hinting that I needed to get going. But it was great fun, really, thanks so much. I figured there was no sense saying anything except pleasantries, as obviously we weren't a match for each other. But the date could be over now, and we could go our separate ways. I was still a little insecure as I didn't know what was wrong with me from the beginning, so that he wanted to get through this date so fast. But despite looking good on paper, Michael seemed very dull to me. So we walked back to our cars while I chatted on about whatever I could think of to fill the time, and I made a hasty retreat out of there. But that wasn't the end of it. That night I got a message from Michael thanking me for the date and saying how much fun he had. He seemed like a totally different person again than the one I met that afternoon. He mentioned he would like to see me again and asked if I would be available later that week. I was dumbfounded. Michael seemed like a different person online. He seemed charming and friendly. So I thought maybe he was just shy. I used to be shy as a kid, so I knew how that felt. Maybe this afternoon was a disaster, but maybe the next date would be better. And maybe this afternoon would be something we'd laugh and tell our grandkids about someday. I attended a regular board gaming night Thursday night. We had started out as strangers who all came together years ago to do a hobby we all enjoyed and ended up casual friends. Everyone was welcome there, and I had brought over a few friends over the years. So I thought maybe I could take Michael over to these friends for board gaming Thursday night. Maybe a group activity would be a less awkward date than something one-on-one, and I could get my friend's perceptions of what was going on with him. I suggest to him, and I had planned on meeting Michael somewhere on the way, so he didn't have to walk up to the door and ring the bell alone. However, when I gave him the time and address, he said he would meet me there. That sounded reasonable, since the house was actually only a couple of miles from where I used to work and he currently worked. However, when Thursday evening came, I got a call from Michael. He asked what highway to take to get to the family's house. And I replied there was no need to get on the interstate as the house was only a couple of miles from his work. Just go down a main street name and turn onto street name and drive up to house number. Michael oddly replied, surely there is a highway that goes to their house. And I was baffled. Why would a highway take someone to another person's house? Directly to a person's house? Especially when it was only a couple of miles from where he was starting at, and any highway was twice that distance away. I just went over the directions again, knowing he had a Google map, and asked if he was sure he didn't want to meet me somewhere, so he could follow me over to their house. He said no and told me he would see me there, but seemed agitated, but at least he seemed to be talking pretty well. I arrived 30 minutes before I had told Michael to arrive, as I wanted to be there when he arrived so he wouldn't feel awkward around strangers. The hosts have a modern house with a great room, table space on the dining room table, a folding table in the living room, and another coffee table over by the fireplace on the other side of the great room. When I arrived, I found Michael already there and playing a board game with some of the regulars. He seemed to be having a great time, and he joked and talked to the players at the table just fine. I only later on realized that everyone at his table was a middle-aged male. As I came, one of my friends started to introduce Michael as a new member. I smiled and said we knew each other, and I had invited him to the board gaming tonight. I said hello to everyone, and made some small talk as I went into the great room to greet everyone else. Michael seemed a little awkward saying hi to me, but he also seemed really involved in the game. I wandered around greeting everyone and seeing what they were playing, and found out Michael was about 20 minutes into an 1.5-hour game. He had to arrive at least 30 minutes before myself. I was struck as how sociable and relaxed Michael seemed. He made normal eye contact with the players at the table. Maybe he was just shy around women. Maybe the real one-on-one date was a lot of pressure for him. I got into a short game, timing it so I'd be free when Michael was done. The guys, including Michael, returned to the main great room so we could recombine for some other gaming, and I let two groups go off to play games, so that there was just Michael, myself, and Beth, the wife of the couple who were hosting. Beth suggested we play a 3-player game. Michael didn't know any of them that were out, so we finally settled on a board game called Elfenland, which Beth and I knew we could teach, and Michael said he was willing to try. Michael was acting kind of awkward again, but Beth is such a good hostess, and she carried half of the conversation, while I carried the other half, so it seemed less awkward. Beth began by explaining the board game to Michael as we set it up. Her and her husband hosted gaming each week, and she has 4 school-age kids, so she does a great job of explaining things. After a while, Michael said that we should just start playing as he will learn as he plays, since Beth and I already knew the rules. This actually isn't that unusual, as some people like myself learn by playing and can pick up on patterns quickly, so going over all kinds of rules ahead of time can be a waste of time. However, not knowing Michael's playing style, Beth tries to explain a little more, and Michael says, let's just play, so we both shrug and start playing the game. Shortly into the game, Michael tries to do a maneuver, and Beth tells him he can't do it because of a certain rule. Michael seems annoyed and says, but I didn't know that, to which Beth replies, I was trying to tell you earlier, and she tries to explain. Michael states fine, in an angry tone, and ends up doing something different. A couple of minutes later the same thing happens, and again and again. Eventually Beth is both a little annoyed, and also kind of laughing as Michael keeps getting upset he can't do something in the game, but he doesn't want to listen to the rules, even when Beth tries to give him the specific rules for whatever he is trying to do at that point. I'm starting to get embarrassed as the environment we game in is very good-natured and friendly. People do not get mad when they lose or get blocked, yet this game is getting kind of heated. Finally, Michael tries to do a final maneuver, and he is blocked. He gets upset and says how he didn't know that could be done, to which Beth replies nicely that she has tried to explain the rules to him all this time, but he didn't want to listen and just wanted to play the game. The board game ends and Michael seems a little miffed. He hasn't made eye contact with me since I walked in the door. He's pretty much kept his eyes on the board most of the time, as he doesn't seem to make eye contact with Beth either. I can't tell if this is due to shyness or aggression. He says he has to leave as it's getting late. It's about 11 p.m., so I walk him to the door and say, I was glad he could come by. I hope he had fun, and he should feel welcome to come back again another time. However, I actually feel like this night was also sort of a disaster, as he and I had no interaction besides playing a board game with a third party, and he seemed to have an awful time. He shyly mumbles something and leaves. Beth doesn't seem to notice when the game ends that I walk with Michael to the door as her husband's game ends at the same time, and he asks her as he goes in for a hug, "Hey babe, how did it go?" And I hear Beth saying to him, "Geez, where did that guy come from? He didn't want to know the rules, but then got angry he didn't know the rules," laugh. Beth is this really gracious woman who was raised as a finishing school in Europe as her father was military, so it's odd to see her annoyed. I don't say anything about Michael, and just slip into playing another game, and I figure that's the end of it. However, it still isn't. I get another message from Michael saying how much fun he had, and asking when I could see him again. I figure what the heck is going on? Does he really think these are good dates? I can be sympathetic that he is painfully shy or whatever his problem is, but I'm not having fun, and he is really dull. At the time, I rarely went on more than 2 dates with anyone unless I really was interested in them, which wasn't anyone on any of the dating services. So I decided to not answer his email. A day later he called me up, and I let it go to mail. He mentioned wanting to get together to show me how to play Magic the Gathering, which was a 2-person card game I had mentioned I had never learned to play, which was popular. I never called him back. A few YRS later I ran a local aboard gaming site, and a woman joined whose last name was the same as Michael's. She mentioned in her profile that she was always trying to get her brother to socialize more, as all he wanted to do is play video games on his time off. A couple of times later on I bumped into Michael, now with a beard, attending a gaming meetup I was filling in for a friend to run. We never spoke, but he probably recognized me. So to sum up, guy with an apparent paralyzing fear of females, and no personality keeps asking for another date, even after we have a totally miserable experience. I believe he tried to be impressive with skill, but he went overboard and embarrassed himself each time. Around the same time, I had a long phone call which never turned into a date, as frankly I was totally weirded out by the call. But it was sort of like a train wreck in that I couldn't pull myself away. The guy mentioned that he moved here, flyover country, recently from CA, and his car was stolen from the parking lot of his work nearby, during the day. So I would have to drive when we went out as he was without a car, and it would be a while before he would get the insurance money to replace his car. Okay. Then he goes into a long story that sounded like the plot of Goodfellas, or The Godfather, of how he used to be involved with the mafia in CA, WTF, and how his lovely wife had been targeted when he tried to break away from the mafia. She was killed in a car crash/explosion on the 101, and he fled the state. Really, WTF? He suspected that his car was stolen by the CA mafia, who might have tracked him down. He also was a writer. He had a story about his own custom D&D Fantasyland, which rivaled Tolkien in his opinion, and he was getting it published. Before we even met, he emailed me the entire book, which was a huge file back in 2008. Right after the phone call, I escalated his and my status to where I would totally drop off the radar and not answer email or mail at all, which I usually did after a couple of bad dates. He didn't take the hint even after several weeks went by of him calling and emailing and getting no reply. During this time his messages became more and pleading and wistful, once stating, "I'm getting the idea that you don't want to talk to me," laugh. And then, "Please get back to me. I want to make sure you are okay and haven't met with a horrible demise." Ominous. I had many experiences on dating sites, a few weird situations here and there, the odd catfish, but most of them pretty good. This one is still quite fresh, but it has been by far the worst experience on a dating site, and it has left me sick to my stomach. It's a lot to read, so sit down with a hot cup of tea or whatever preferred beverage. So I matched with this guy, Jay, and we had an awesome conversation right away, great chemistry and all that, and we hit it off pretty quick. He mentioned he had kids, and they would always come first, which is not a problem for me at all. I assumed that he wasn't with the mother of his children anymore, as he was working and living 3 hours away from them. I actually found it admirable that he still made time for his kids every week to see them, even though he had a crazy work schedule. We talked for several weeks through text and phone calls, and he was the sweetest, attentionate funny. He would send me pictures of him and his kids having fun, and it made my heart melt. My pastime is to paint cute portraits, and he asked me to paint his kids, which I gladly accepted. By then I was pretty keen to meet him, and when the first date came I was super happy and excited. It was the cutest date, We played some board games in the car and ate popcorn next to a lake, talked until late together in the car. While we were talking, his phone was pinging quite a lot, and at one point he reached to look at the messages, and I didn't mean to glance, but the corner of my eye caught a text message from Princess. The girl in me, of course, was alarmed, but hey, I thought, we are only on the first date, and we haven't known each other for so long. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt, and don't ask questions, otherwise he will think you are crazy. So I shoved that on the back of my head and continued staying in contact with him. He would take news every day and talk about him and what he wanted. Explained to me that there was never any love in his marriage, so that's why it was over now. But he was looking for real love, a connection, someone to be with, etc. But he would always put his kids first. He said how the most important thing for him was honesty and communication. I thought how cool that he's got the vulnerability to talk about this to me. I was quite flattered, and my heart melted further. Now comes the second date. He asked me if I'd be keen to come up to his place, and even offered to pay for my gas money. I declined the money, but I thought it was really thoughtful of him. So jumped in my car and did the 3H trip to see him. We spent a lovely time together, and of course we ended up having sex. He seemed quite nervous, and I won't go into details, but there was some malfunction in the system. Honestly, I didn't care. I thought it was quite sweet, actually. And guess what? Yes, my heart melted again. I just wanted to give all my TLC to this sweet, loving guy that goes through a hard work schedule to provide for his children. He went out of his way to come and see me at my place, when he had already a couple hours drive from his kid's place, and 3 hours left to drive to get home. It made me feel really special and appreciated. We continued to stay in contact, but what I shoved at the back of my head came back. This guy is too good to be true. My gut feeling was telling me that the whole thing smelled fishy and weird. I couldn't forget the Princess text, and he actually never mentioned divorce. He would just call the mother of his children the ex. Still went back to see him. We went for a walk, and he told me about his upcoming trip to Brazil in a month and a half. And I thought that it was so good for him to get some time for himself for once. We went to the post office to renew his passport and all that stuff. He opened up about his situation, how he was actually currently in the process of divorcing his wife. I thought that it was very strange he didn't mention that before, but thought that hey, fair enough, it's a quite difficult subject to talk about. When we were back in the car, I had his phone in my hands to choose some music, and bing, comes a message from a lovely looking girl from Instagram. Hey babe, I hope you had a good rest. That wasn't his ex-wife. My heart just skipped a beat, and I went cold. He noticed, and asked what was wrong, what he did wrong. I couldn't get a word out of my mouth. Now guys, you're probably going to tell me, hey, he never promised you anything, which is true, but I can't help it, I'm a girl. It is imprinted in my genes, I guess, but I just want to be loved and cherished. So when we came home, I was quite emotional, and I told him that okay, he didn't promise anything, and it hasn't been so long we've been dating, but if his thing is to have several girls in his life, great for him. I'm not there to judge, but it's not my thing and I don't want to be a part of it. I told him that this message reminded me of a very bad memory from when I found out my first love cheated on me. He looked at me and he was very understanding. He told me that he wanted to fix this. He would delete the girls that were talking to him. I told him it wasn't my point. If he is involved with those girls, I can't stop him from doing so, but I can stop myself from seeing him. He looked at me in the eyes and told me how he was someone that wanted just one person in his life, and that he was seating next to her right now. I wanted to believe him, so I did. He sounded so genuine. Later on in the evening, I still saw a message on the corner of my eye to Princess about a renewal of something, but my stupid ass just ignored it and thought he was probably calling his daughter like this or something. If you're still reading me, we are now close to the end of the story. I was trusting and happy to go see him again a couple of weeks later. So I did, and when I came over he wasn't there, but he had left the door open for me. He was still working at some friends, so he wouldn't be back for about 3 hours. I made myself comfortable, went to take something in the fridge, and then I saw on his calendar, only a month and a half until I can see C. Right away all the dots connected. We girls are pretty nifty at finding out who is who, and it was fairly easy to find out that C lives in Brazil, and is the one that sent the "Hey babe, I hope you had a good rest" message. I'm also pretty sure that she was the Princess contact on his phone. They were talking about the passport renewal. Funny enough, she looks like a more beautiful version of myself. I was extremely disappointed, so sent him a message to tell him I saw the calendar and connected all the dots, and that I understood he was going to see someone important to him in Brazil. But I was sorry, I couldn't go further in this, as I've been quite clear that it's not my thing to share. I I was packing my stuff back and searching for a hotel room when he answered back. He told me I was right, and he was sorry, he had been selfish, but we could remain friends if I wanted. Then something about how I deserved better and whatnot. I didn't answer back. I thought, how can I be friends with someone that lied with such ease? And if he lied about this, maybe he is lying about the divorce? I don't want to be friends. I went up in the room to gather the rest of my stuff and noticed the envelope that I used to give him the painting I did for him. Inside was the painting, along with a picture of him and his wife. I took the painting and thought that I didn't want my art to be part of this guy's life, so ripped it, threw it in the bin and left. I was sick to my stomach, and so angry with myself for ignoring my gut feeling. You guys will probably tell me that you saw it coming from the beginning. I reckon I did as well, but I'm an expert at giving the benefit of the doubt. He was so lovely, cute, and huggable. He gave me the perfect performance of this sweet, vulnerable, unsure about his looks, self-conscious, and hard-working guy. I just wanted it to work. If you read me till the end, thank you. It feels good and takes a weight off my chest. Gotta work on red flag busting now. Oh dear. This happened to me just last week. I am on the Bumble dating app. I accepted a date with a guy on there who coincidentally happened to be a brother of a guy I have known casually for a few years. This mistakenly made me feel he must be safe and normal. I allowed this person to pick me up from my house. Huge mistake. One of the first questions he asked me is, "Are you racist?" I replied, "No, I don't feel I am." "Why?" He replied, "He is not racist, but he doesn't like airs." At first, I thought I heard wrong. I did not. For the rest of the evening, much of his conversation consisted of using the N-word repeatedly, coupled with questions asking me if I had ever dated He said he could never date a woman who had Ked 1. He was also overly hyperactive. I believe he might have been on something like speed, or something else. Honestly, I have no idea. He showed me screenshots of pics and comments from my private Instagram. He criticized my photos, and said I posted them for attention. He told me he Googled and researched me. He said he did not like the thought of any woman of his receiving comments on her photos by airs. He loved using the N-word. I asked how he was able to obtain any photos since my Instagram is private. His answer was because he is ex-military. He proceeded to tell me about men he had killed in Iraq at point-blank range during Operation Freedom. He also announced he wanted me to post only photos of him and I on my social media accounts. He asked what I was doing the next day, and I said I am busy. The following day I received a text from this racist maniac saying he's sitting in his vehicle in my driveway. I texted back I am not home, and I am disturbed to hear he is in my driveway. I explained I didn't want to see him anymore. He replied with several long texts begging me to be with him, telling me I am beautiful and amazing. He said he found and kept 2 strands of my hair. He spoke as if we had been dating for months. When I said I barely know you, please stop, he replied he would. He did not. I received more pleading text messages. Then I received a text asking to just hang out as friends. I said, no. We are 2 very different people, and it's best we don't see each other at all. He then replied with very mean name calling, and telling me I am fat. He called me Miss Piggy. LOL, he said 4 people had told him I am a fat bitch. He said he has $750K in the bank, and that was not enough to feed me. He told me to F off. I hope I will never hear from him again. I have saved all the texts from this man in case he ever shows up at my house again. I have them to show to the police. I have blocked him on all my sites, and hopefully he won't see this or anything else connected to me. This one Bumble date was definitely with a scary dude. Asterisk, I want to add that after this very upsetting experience, I deleted my profile on that dating app and have not been on any dating sites since. After my divorce, I tried a couple of dating sites for about 3 months total, and was not pleased with the quality of any of the men I encountered. After all I have been through, I have taken a complete break from socializing, and it has remained this way since January. CH and I had been on several dates. We'd met for movies and frozen yogurt and board games. These have gone well. So this was to be the next important test, drinks at a bar with some of my wonderful, if drama-queening friends. I knew that CH had a good mind, but the soul is more important. We are what we do. Here's what we did that night. 7 p.m. I arrive at the bar. This was a relatively impromptu date, so CH hasn't arrived yet. Fortunately, I know other people and start catching up. 7:30, I'm on my second scotch and soda. Life is good, and I feel no pain. I start catching up with D. and learned that she was just laid off. Ouch. But after 20 years at the job, she got an excellent severance package, a year's pay. So her plan to take the summer off and job search in the fall seems good to me. 7:45 I get bumped into and drop scotch number 3. I decide to cool it with the booze. Dia's had a few shots and decides that her next job will be executive director of notoriously drama-filled organization. I suggest that she could probably do it, but warn her that, 1, she might be too sane, and 2, there are a lot of drama queens to deal with. She asserts that she can handle it. It'd be interesting to see her do the job. 8 o'clock CH arrives. He'd swung by another bar first, and was also feeling no pain. He brought his new book with him, and Coulter's demonic. Much as I like right-wing politics, this is a bad omen. 8:30 CH and MW argue. MW simply wants to assert that Coulter is bad and move on. CH, however, challenges him to make a statement about what she's written. MW, clearly flustered, goes off on tangents. CH sticks to the topic like a pit bull with a thigh bone. 9 o'clock CH and MW are still beating the dead horse, as I tell them, so I talk to other people. I've missed MD a lot, and it's good that he's back in town. The two of us snark about the silliness going on around us. 9:30 CH and MW are still haggling. B drops on by. He eggs on the conflict. I'm still drinking club soda, and my head has cleared up somewhat. I start chatting with a few of CH's friends who are in the bar that night, A and S. L joins us and talks real estate. 10 o'clock MW complains about CH berating him about politics. Given that MW cannot ever say what he feels, I suggest that next time he tells someone that he really doesn't feel like talking about the subject and move on. I try to change the subject then, but MW keeps complaining. I tell him that the horse is long dead and to stop beating it. He complains more. I tell him that if snivels one more sentence about in Coulter, I'll switch from horse beating to MW beating. He lurches out the door. 10:30 B and CH start arguing over in Coulter. B attempts to wrestle the book out of CH's hands, and a drink gets smashed on the ground. I pull out my flashlight to help with the cleanup. 10:45 S and I start chatting as B and CH start peacemaking. Apparently having a flashlight in your pocket attracts a certain kind of guy. He's studying to be a forensic accountant, which is something I know about thanks to paralegal work and e-discovery. It's a nice chat, and I get his number. Yes, I'm sort of on a date with someone else. I figured, correctly, that things were going south quickly. Future dates were seeming as probable as a Newt Gingrich presidency. 11 o'clock CH decides to go to a bar where he's been banned. A bouncer there doesn't much care for his antics. I suggest we do something else, but he insists. You gotta dance with them as Brungya, goes the saying. 11:15 he goes on ahead. I chat with MD before he goes home. He and B keep snarking about our mutual friends and each other. I wish us good night. 11:20 I head over to the other bar. It seems quiet. I go upstairs and have another club soda. CH and I chat, but it's hard to hear over the loud music. His bouncer finds him and drags him outside. I follow, concerned. 11:25 in the street, which is brighter than the bar, I can see that the bouncer has massive shoulders, which imply some serious gym time, and bitch tits, which imply some serious steroid abuse. He looks to be in the midst of roid rage. He goes over to a nearby cop and demands that she arrest CH. 11:30 I watch from across the street. I can't hear what CH said, but he says something that makes the female cop slam her hands on the hood of her car. She talks into a walkie-talkie. Soon we have 8 cop cars around us. Clearly, this boy is a threat. 11:35 L comments that really, while all this commotion is going on in the relatively nice part of town we're in, we've probably had a homicide or 2 in the hood. Our friend CA comes by and wonders why he can't get this kind of police response when his car gets broken into. I ask how often that happens. He says every 3 months or so. 11:40 L wants to go tell the police what he thinks. I suggest this would be a bad idea, but if he wants to bail CH out of jail, he ought to. Lloyd gives me a business card, and I go up to where CH is studiously ignoring the police by reading in Coulter while they stand around him. Reading a book in front of cops seems to be his way of avoiding disorderly conduct charges. A cop informs me that my friend is too busy to talk. I agree and simply mention that a mutual friend has offered to bail him out. I show the man the card, resist saying that I didn't have time to bake a hacksaw into it, and hand it to CH. I thanked the officer for his time, patience, and service and went back across the street. 11:45 I chat with the bouncer, whose name is Tom. He's calmed down somewhat, and it becomes clear that he and CH are like Dennis the Menace and Mr. Wilson. He seems like an okay type. I also chat with the female police officer, Officer Goodwin. She has a tattoo and an elegant script that reads faith, one way, and hope when looked at upside down. I compliment her on her good taste. 11:50 the cops have nothing, and CH gets off with a warning. I walk him over to the subway. He explains that he loves a challenge. I suggest that controlling his own behavior would be a good challenge. He seems uninterested in it. We walk in stone silence. He apologizes. I tell him not to apologize unless he's sincere. He says that he's sincere, and I say he's grinning too much. He thanks me for staying, and says that most dates would have gone away. I explain that I have notoriously poor judgment about such matters, and that I wanted to be a witness in case he got beaten up. He said that such things don't happen. I suggest he try saying that to a room full of working-class black people. He thanks me for getting him to the subway. My last words, good night, knucklehead. Probably my worst 2 dates were with one girl in particular. This was a few years after my first marriage had ended. In this period I had been on lots of awkward dates, lots of lovely dates, but never had any where I really clicked with anyone. Anyway, a friend suggested I should go out with a friend of hers. She was sure we'd be a great match, so she gave each other our email addresses. She lived in a city around 70 miles away, so we emailed and called each other quite a few times over a couple of weeks and seemed to get along quite well. So we decided to meet up and go on our first date. She said that the coming weekend she had a friend's birthday party to go to and suggested that I be her and friend. The party was being held at a restaurant in the city where she lived, and it was decided that I would meet her there. I arrived. She texted me she was running late, but she was with the guest of honor, so it wouldn't start until she arrived. Eventually she arrived with the birthday girl, my ex-wife. Well, that was awkward. I am ex and I hadn't parted on good terms, and we hadn't seen or talked to each other for about 5 years. I suggested I should leave, but my date said she wanted me to stay. I remained polite, as did my ex, but it kind of put a damper on the evening. It turned out my date and my ex had been childhood friends, had fallen out of touch, and had encountered each other only a few months prior. Consequently, my date knew nothing about us having been married. After the evening, my ex briefly spoke with me, and apologized for wrecking our marriage and for all the heartache she caused, that she hoped we could be friendly, and wished my date and I well. My ex suggested we should get along well. Okay, so after the initial shock, the evening ended on a positive note. I didn't really get to know my date at all, but at least I had some closure on some bad stuff in my past. The next week, I was invited to another party with my date. This was pretty uneventful, and to be honest, I can't really remember any of it. I was getting along well with this girl, but still hadn't had any alone time with her. So the following weekend we decided to go out for lunch on the Saturday. This is where things went pear-shaped. I was to pick her up, but she wouldn't give me her address. She said her place was hard to find, so I should first go to a particular strip mall, call her once I was there, and then she'd give the directions to her place. So once I arrived there, instead of giving me directions, she told me to wait there, and she would meet me there. Okay, this was a big warning sign, but I went along with it. I had to wait for nearly an hour, and got to the point where I decided I would leave if she didn't show up by a certain time. She arrived just before the deadline. She arrived, but had a friend with her. Apparently that's why she was late. She hadn't seen the friend for ages, and she happened to drop in this morning, so she invited her along. This was supposed to be our first date with just the two of us, but not to be. She seemed to have issues about being alone together, but maybe the story was true. Anyway, I suggested we all jump in my car, a large luxury saloon car, but she insisted we take her car, and I had to ride in the back. Her car was an old Mazda. It was a mess inside, had no air conditioning, springs were coming out of the back seat. It was horrid. In retrospect, I should have told her not to bother right there, but I went along. She decided that we would go to a swanky restaurant in a resort town about 50 miles away. So off we went, with her and her friend in the front, and me in the back. Her and her friend talked the whole way, with absolutely no conversation including me. Not that I could have been included. The noise in the car was so bad that I couldn't hear anything they said anyway. We got to the restaurant, and again her and her friend talked the whole time. I was only included in the conversation occasionally. I may as well have not been there. Well, I was there for one thing. Her and her friend left me to pick up the bill, for all three of us. The return trip was a mirror of the trip down, except my mind was absolutely made up that I wasn't going to bother seeing this girl again. So we get back to the strip mall. Thank goodness my car was still there unharmed, as it was a dodgy area. And she says to me that we need to talk. Okay. She starts by telling me that she really enjoys my company, but that I'm too demanding on her time. What? That I can't expect to see her every weekend, and she thinks it best that we stop seeing each other. At this point I'm just agreeing with her, because I really didn't want to see her again, and if she's breaking up, not that we had anything to break up from, then as far as I'm concerned she's saving me the hassle. Inside I'm happy, outside I'm trying to look a bit disappointed but agreeing with her. But, when she said we stop seeing each other, she hadn't finished her sentence. She didn't mean stop seeing each other completely. She meant stop seeing each other as regularly because she was planning our wedding for June the following year, so we had heaps of time to see each other before then. To say I was dumbfounded is the understatement of the century. I didn't know what to say, and didn't say anything. I just got in my car and drove home in shock. We had been on 3 dates, had never spent any alone time together. I didn't even consider that we were an item. Definitely not engaged. After I got home, I didn't contact her, and she didn't contact me, so I figured maybe she was just trying to shock me out of her life. I was happy, had started seeing someone else, and had pretty much forgotten about crazy fiancé lady. Until some 6 months later, I was at a function, and she happened to be there. I politely said hello, and her response was literally, "Hi. Did you know there's a ball on next Friday night at venue? I'd love to go, but I refused to be asked out a week before. Oh, there's friend, bye." I thought it was weird, but didn't think any more of it. That is until about 11 p.m. the next Friday night, when the phone rang. "How dare you stand me up?" "Huh. I waited all night at the ball, but you didn't show up." "I never said I was going. You're a terrible boyfriend for doing that to me. I've devoted 6 months of my life to you, and you can't even take one night out for me. I don't want to break up with you, but maybe we should." Yeah, maybe we should." In the middle of sobbing, I was called every bad name under the sun, before she hung up. That was more than 10 years ago, and thankfully haven't seen or heard from her since. Before I got married, I tried my hand at using dating apps for the first time. My main reasoning was that I did not have a lot of spare time to actually meet anyone outside of my industry, so I thought it would help me getting exposure to people I would not necessarily meet otherwise in real life. I met this guy, who we will call Bob, on Bumble, and we exchanged a few polite messages. He seemed nice and the stereotypical guy who enjoyed boating, beer and cigars. He would pressure me to meet him for drinks out, stating that statistically people who chatted on the dating apps without actually meeting within 2 weeks of matching would probably be likely to never meet. I had a date already scheduled the evening he was trying to meet with me, but still he insisted. I was honest and let him know that I had a date later, and he claimed that he did not care, as he still wanted to meet. 2 dates in one night was not something that I had ever engaged in, but he seemed so adamant about meeting quickly. So I agreed to meet him at the local brewery for a drink prior to my date. When I showed up, his first comment was that he was surprised that I had such an athletic build. Odd, but I didn't necessarily think anything super off about it, as my calves are typically more muscular than most men's, after years of dance training and kickboxing. We sat down and had a drink. He was engaged in conversation, and I could see from his eyes that he seemed very interested. He laughed and had a good sense of humor. Things were going well, but I was keeping a watchful eye on the time. Eventually my other date for the evening called, and his picture flashed across my screen. Bob asked if that was my date later, and I replied that he was. I thanked him for a good time, and we headed towards the door of the brewery. He seemed shocked that I would still go on my other date, given that we seemed to hit it off, and there was actually chemistry. I felt bad leaving, but I hate canceling prior commitments at the last minute. Bob immediately went in for a kiss, and surprisingly, he was a good kisser. He stepped back and said that he would talk to me later. I went on the second date that evening, and we met at a restaurant for dinner. It was pleasant, but we did not have the same chemistry as Bob and I had. We parted ways that evening, and decided to just stay friends on social media. Bob would friend me on Facebook and immediately started liking my posts regularly. He messaged me and told me that he was heading to Germany for Oktoberfest, but that he wanted to see me again once he got back into town. He even kept in contact with messages and pictures from his travels while he was gone, as we shared that common interest. He invited me to go with him to a Dia de la Muerte party at the local art and fashion gallery when he returned from his travels. I told him that he needed to come over prior to the event that evening, so that I could paint his face as we could go as a coordinated couple. Coincidentally, I knew the owner of the gallery and was able to procure 2 tickets to the sold-out event, so I wanted to go dressed in the theme of the event. As I painted his face, he shared that he was always self-conscious of his acne scars, and I told him that his skin was not as bad as he thought, and he probably noticed it more than anyone else would have. I was surprised that he had shared a little insecurity with me, as he seemed a little reserved with information thus far. I was surprised when we pulled up to the venue. He proceeded to park in the handicapped spot and even pulled out a placard. He didn't explain it, nor did I ask who the handicapped person was. We made a quick cameo at the event, as we made the rounds as I said my hellos to the people that I knew at the event. He also knew some of the people, as he used to own several coffee shops in the local area, in addition to being a local firefighter. He loved all of the compliments he received from random strangers on how authentic our costumes and makeup were. We had plans to go to dinner after the event at a local Mexican restaurant that would have appreciated our authentic garb, while not batting an eye at our appearance. Instead, he walked quickly ahead of me, passing the restaurant and headed towards another restaurant that we did not discuss. As he got us seated at the oyster bar, I hate seafood. I looked at the menu to see what I could eat. He proceeded to order oysters. The only thing that I could feed myself without messing up the sugar skull makeup were the blue cheese fries. He turned to me and said, "Why do you exercise if you are going to eat like that?" I was shocked and just stared at him. I told him that I exercised so that I could eat like that. I eventually started to ask him questions as to what happened to his prior marriage when he brought it up. In typical bitter ex form, he began trashing his ex-wife, saying that she deceived him and took all of his money. I had a feeling that there was something else that happened behind the scenes with their divorce. After he dropped me off at home, he didn't even go in for a kiss this time. I couldn't understand what suddenly changed and what he was such a jerk after making all of this effort for weeks since our first date. I began to Google him and could not find anything. Literally nothing, which was odd because he was known as a local businessman from his coffee shop days. As we were friends on Facebook, I happened to look at Messenger and realized his last name was spelled a letter off. When I searched that name, I finally found the domestic violence charge that eventually led to his dismissal from the local fire department. This explained his anger issues towards his ex-wife. She was the stereotypical trophy wife by all appearances. She was very fit and pretty by all accounts. I was shopping a few days later and saw this shirt and laughed, because it seemed so fitting of the scenario a few nights prior. So I snapped a picture and sent it to him. He didn't respond. He would eventually become open about his new relationship on Facebook. I was happy for him. She seemed to be what he was looking for physically, much like his ex-wife, Build Wise. He would continue to follow my travels and adventures on Facebook, often joking offering to be my assistant and carry my luggage. While I was out of the country, he would text me asking me if I could help his girlfriend get into my industry. I laughed to myself. The audacity. I am nice. I am not that nice. Here we are years later, and now that I am going through a divorce, he rears his head to message me sexy photos. My response was, "I don't think your girlfriend would like you messaging me pics like that, especially because I saw that they just bought a house together." He responded, "We don't have that kind of relationship. I can do what I want." My response, smirking, "Does she know that you have an open relationship?" It's always interesting to me when the zombie effect occurs in the dating scene. I am not exactly sure what happened completely, unless he felt slighted that first date way back when I didn't cancel my other date and wanted to treat me badly on the second date for that reason. Until that date, the only other horrible date I went on was my one and only blind date that a coworker had set me up on. The guy started the date asking me, "You're so pretty. I am surprised you are still single. What's wrong with you?" My response, "Well, I do have a bit of a psychotic issue. If you're going to ask me a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer." Bear with me, this one gets a bit long. I had been doing online dating for a few years, meeting some nice women, but nobody with whom I clicked in a while. This particular girl was interesting, cute, single, never married, witty and intelligent, as well as very flirty in a seductive way. In short, the whole package. We'd never met though, because she lived an hour away, and neither of us was keen to drive the whole way, and there was nothing interesting in the middle. One Saturday night, a date stood me up, so I was online by 7:30. Soon after I logged into the dating site, aforementioned interesting girl messaged me, and we began chatting. It turned out, she said, that she had been stood up as well. She invited me to drive to her locale for dinner and a DVD. After some hemming and hawing, I was young and lazy. I opted for the what's the worst that could happen route and jumped in my car around 8:15, making record time and arriving by 9. I called her from the parking lot, and she buzzed me into the massive building in which she lived. Navigating the labyrinthine hallways, I arrived at her door and knocked, and out stepped a woman who fulfilled every promise her pictures held and more. She was such a knockout, I didn't notice at the time that she had closed the door behind her. We trekked back to the parking lot, where she insisted on driving. "You've been in the car so long." And we set off for one of the only restaurants still open in her area after 9 p.m. The conversation in the car flowed, unfortunately. Over the course of the next 20 to 30 minutes, she did most of the talking, and managed to tell me the following. She is not, in fact, single, never married. As it says on her profile, she is divorced. Her divorce is not, in fact, finalized, but will be soon, so technically she is separated, still married. She still has some feelings for her not-yet ex. In fact, they still see each other occasionally. He lives in his parents' basement. She suffers from depression, or as she put it, "Sometimes I don't know why I exist." About a month ago, when she was feeling particularly low, she went to visit him to have dinner and watch a movie. Her ulterior motive, she told me, was to seduce him. Her motivation for that motive was to get pregnant, because she thought that a baby might give her life a purpose. To that end, she had quite a bit to drink, they both did, and she neglected to use a condom. She doesn't like the pill because of what it does to her complexion. Soon after, she drove home, still drunk and still depressed. Arriving at home, she flopped on the couch next to her roommate. The roommate is her cousin. Her second cousin, really. This cousin was released from jail, assault and battery, 2 to 3 months prior. It seems he has a bit of an anger problem. After she told him what she had done, and he argued that she needed to go now, to get the morning after pill, so she didn't conceive. She rebuffed him and said she would sleep on the matter. She went to bed. When she awoke the next morning, her cousin was lying in bed next to her. Naked. Waking, he said, "Guess you better go get that pill now, huh?" She did. The cousin still lives with her. That's why she slipped out the door so deftly. Needless to say, I was stunned. Unfortunately, she was driving, so I couldn't very well say, "Let me out here, please, crazy lady." We soon arrived at the restaurant, and the rest of the night was very pleasant, all things considered. We ate, had good conversation, about anything but the items above. She drove me back to the apartment, and I hightailed it out of there. The next time I saw her was at a fundraiser. She was on the arm of a friend, whom I knew from being in that friend's wedding with him. She smiled and gave me a hug, and I grinned at her new beau as I shook his hand. Either he knew what I knew and didn't care, or he was in for a hell of a story someday. The boys outnumbered the girls in my high school, 16-24 to 0. Come prom season, the imbalance presented a problem. Joe and David brought their girlfriends, and Connor's dad set him up with his employee. Tom didn't even go, a wise choice. I was stuck with 2 tickets and no date. Don't be like your father. The man didn't even go to his own prom, said Mom. I contemplated pulling a Danny Sr., but asked Kira instead. I typed and retyped the message until I overcame my anxiety and pressed send. She said yes. I was elated, but more importantly relieved. Seniors have enough to worry about. They don't need the added stress of prom. Going stag's always an option, said Mom. It is, but nobody does that, I said. By January, Kira found a boyfriend. Now that you're in a relationship, are you still going with Dan? Asked Connor. Of course, she said. From there I moved on to the next problem. Kira's unavailability made me realize how much I liked her. I longed for the taste of her lips, but all I had was Crown Royal. Could you pick your head up off the desk? Said Mr. Hawk, appalled a student dared sleep in the first row. I was tired, depressed, and slightly hungover. He could force me to keep my head up, but he couldn't make me pay attention. What good was physics when the girl I loved was with another man? Matt and Nick came over to my locker at the end of the day. We heard you're going to prom with Kira, said Nick. They slung every possible insult. Kira's too annoying, too flirty, too desperate, and weighs too much. She was infamous. Kira knew more people in my school than I did, and I actually went there. A couple months later, I was sitting on Connor's couch when I heard the best news. That asshole broke up with me right before my race, said Kira. She lasted 20 minutes before bursting into tears. Comfort her, said Connor, nudging me. Put your arm around her. At the time, cheering up women wasn't in my repertoire, so I kept my distance. Plus, part of me thought it unfair to swoop in right after a breakup. The month of May crept up on us while we were busy writing term papers, taking finals, and dodging questions about where we would attend college. Should I go and get her, or should I have her drive here? I asked. It would be nice if you went and picked her up, said Mom. I found Kira and her mother standing by the curb. They looked on in horror as I attempted to parallel park. Within 3 maneuvers, I straightened the car out. Matt and Nick were wrong. Kira looked beautiful. She wore a knee-length black and white dress. I wouldn't have remembered without looking at the pictures. I got a spray tan, she said, to cover up my tan lines from practice. Kira rode on the Sagamore crew team. The practices toned her muscles, and she lost a ton of weight. I don't know how you do it. Don't you gotta wake up at like 5 a.m. on the weekends? Yeah, I actually have to go and meet tomorrow morning, said Kira. Already nervous about prom, I managed to drive us home safely. Kira talked to my parents, and we went outside to take pictures. I rested my arm on the shoulder of the girl I loved. I don't know about her, but I didn't have to fake a single smile. The lady across the street complained about the length of Kira's dress. It was up to here, she said, slapping her upper thigh close to the crotch. I figured that was her way of saying Kira looked hot. Soon Connor and Joanna arrived, and we took more pictures until we had to leave. Is that your car? Asked Kira wide-eyed. Yeah, said Dad. The Cadillac used to be his pride and joy before we got the dog. Even dethroned, the car still enjoyed second place. By complimenting the Cadillac, Kira forever found herself on my father's good side. Dad drove us since limos were banned. To combat the culture of excess surrounding prom, the school hired a yacht to sail us up and down the Hudson River. Students dubbed the event Aquaprom. Watch your step, I said. Kira hadn't stopped texting since I picked her up. Can I have your phone? Mine's dying, she said. I need yours so I can put in this guy I like's number. His name was Connor Burr. I know that because I still have his contact information in my phone. Backup assist's a bitch. Last month Kira visited Burr at Iona College. He took her to a bunch of parties that impressed her sufficiently. How could a 17-year-old compete with that? Kira and I boarded the ship. We sat at a table set for 8, which was perfect since that was the size of our party. After dinner, the DJ started playing music. Kira took 15 seconds to deem my dancing reprehensible. She turned around and lost me in the crowd. I tried to rejoin her, or at least talk to her, but she was too preoccupied with her real friends. I left. On the way back to the table, I saw Connor. Joanna was grinding on him. She stopped only to grab his tie and slide the silk through her fingers up and down. I found Joe and Danielle sitting down, and Katie and David joined us within a half hour. At least I didn't have to be alone. We talked about high school and college. Another popular topic was how much of a bitch Kira was. Danielle went to school with her and hated her to begin with, so she was more than happy to explain why. I can't recall a word Danielle said, but I do remember how much better she made me feel. Hours later, Kira returned to eat dessert. She noshed on miniature cannolis while the whole table just stared at her. The desserts were better last year, she said. Kira finished and said, I have to go say hi to some people. I decided to follow her. Anything would be better than sitting at that table for another 4 hours. Kira combed all 3 floors of the yacht, searching for her acquaintances and in many cases, enemies. I have to find Matt and Nick, she said. If she only knew what they said about her. Eventually we did run into them, but they didn't have much to say to her face. We just stood there, not saying a word. On the deck we found Brother Peter. He was the only teacher in the school who knew me personally. This is Kira, I said. Brother Peter shook hands with both of us. I could tell he was shocked by how hot my date was. He definitely didn't expect that from me. To him I was just the quiet kid who sat in the back of study hall. I looked into the ocean. Just for a second, I contemplated jumping off and swimming ashore. The worst part of Aquaprom was we were all trapped. And to make matters worse, the greatest symbol of freedom in the world was right over my shoulder. Let's get a picture with the Statue of Liberty, said Kira. We tried, but none of them came out. I decided I'd leave Kira after she said hi to 50 more people. I stuck with her until she reached my quota, and then I returned to a bunch of empty chairs. Nobody picked up when I called, so I panicked until I found Joe and Danielle. I talked with them for the rest of the night. Over the PA, the DJs announced the prom was over. I found Kira, and we took our seats on the bus. Are you okay? She asked. I am. Kira repeated the question over and over. With each yes, it became more apparent I wasn't. A single tear dripped down my cheek. Thankfully, the bus was dark. By 3 in the morning, I finally was home. I told my parents I had a miserable time and went to bed. Kira used me to go to prom, refused to talk or dance with me, and then said hi to hundreds of people who didn't even care about her, all while ignoring the one boy who did. I wished she was fat and awkward and flirty like she used to be. In my mind, the way she treated me was somehow related to her transformation. Before prom, Kira hung out with us every weekend. But the summer of senior year, we only saw her twice. Kira wants to come over. Are you sure you're okay with that? Asked Connor, a full month after prom. I said yes. Don't have a terrible, traumatic experience, but this was my first real date after breaking up with my boyfriend of 3 years, and it is entertaining in retrospect. So my coworker asked me out at the restaurant that we worked at together. I was a weirdo vegan art student, and he was a big buff engineer of few words. I was really surprised, but I looked at his arms and remember thinking, I bet he could do a fireman's carry, and that was the logic that decided. We met up after work at a burger joint that made vegan food. I was late, apologetic, and ordered a portobello mushroom burger. So good, all marinated in balsamic vinegar and basil. And he didn't order anything. Instead, he sat across me at this tiny steel table, and the first thing he said is that he hated mushrooms. They disgusted him as I sat down with my burger. I ate my burger as carefully as one can eat a dripping gray sandwich, and he drank 3 5-hour energy drinks. Engineer, I learned. Got off of work around 9 every day, programmed and built computers until 11, and ritualistically spent about 4 hours a day lifting weights. 5-hour energies ensured he could do this all night while nobody was in the gym. I nodded, what a good plan. After that, he really didn't say much else. He just giggled hysterically in a high-pitched giggle every time I said anything. I decided to take that as an opportunity to say whatever, eventually having a one-sided discussion about the sensuality of color theory. I didn't want to be weird because we worked together, so I agreed to watch a movie platonically as possible. Saw some uplifting Apocalypse Now. Midway through switched to Snakes on a Plane to lighten the mood. He just giggled, grinned, and I wanted to stay friends, but I knew he was nervous and would never talk back, so I said goodnight at 10 p.m. When I got home, my mom asked me how my date went, and I said, oh, it was okay. And then she gasped and asked me what happened to my teeth. My teeth? I ran upstairs to look in the mirror. There was the hugest piece of mushroom covering nearly 2 of my teeth to the right of my 2 front teeth. It looked like they were knocked out because it was black. Apparently that was totally fine with him. He asked me out again the next day. Okay, I won't call this a date, but since the guy whom we were talking about was convinced that it was a date, so for the sake of his mental peace, I will just play along. So I met this guy and found him cute and immensely talented. He asked me out a know of times, but things did not work out then, so one fine day I decided that I will go out with him. I called him and asked him out for a movie. He told me how excited he was to meet me again, and that too on a date. I warned him that it is just a movie plan that will do with lots of popcorns and nothing else. I am never late for anything, so as usual I reached before time. I called him and guess what? His phone was off. I don't want to sound all psycho, but I called him 5 times, but every time it was unavailable. I thought, I will buy the tickets and wait for him since it was a blockbuster movie and the tickets might get sold out. I waited for a good 15 minutes when this guy calls up and says he is coming but still in a taxi. I called after 5 minutes to inquire about his whereabouts, but guess what? His phone was unavailable. Naturally, I was pissed off and I gave 1 ticket to the security, told him this dork's name, and described him as a short, irritating-looking lazy guy, and went ahead to watch the movie. I had already missed the first 5 minutes of it. In India, before a movie starts, they show advertisements for 15 minutes, so you can imagine how late he was. I was enjoying the movie when suddenly I saw that someone fell down, and guess what? It was my darling date. He did not stop over there. He started yelling my name, pretty loudly. Since searching for your seat according to the number given on your ticket is too mainstream. Being the good-natured person that I am, I responded, still regretting, and he came to sit beside me. Then the torture begun. He was creepily staring at me for the entire movie, singing out every romantic song and praising me in every way possible. It was dark and I bet he could not even see me. Then the dreaded interval happened, and he started talking. I don't want to be mean, but I felt like punching him on his face. Just to shut him up, I asked him to get popcorns and 2 Cokes, but he got 1 Coke with 1 straw which he wanted to share. Obviously, I only had the popcorn, leaving the Coke to him. After a good 10 minutes, he stretched his arms and the popcorn tub, full of yummy popcorns, fell on me. Believe me, it was getting difficult when suddenly he asked for the second date, and very politely I turned him down, to which he asked whether we could officially date. I told him I needed time, and will text him once I go back. The longest movie of my life got over. It was a good movie, BTW, but he made it intolerable. And I literally ran away, believe me, in heels. Never replied to the hi that I got from him on that evening. Believe me, I am the most polite person you will ever find. The most terrible experience I made on a dating website was getting involved too quickly and too soon with one of the men I had met on the site. He seemed like someone I could trust. He seemed a lot like me, white-collar professional, normal, steady. Everything looked great on paper, on screen, which is fine if you're interviewing a new employee. But even prospective hires need letters of recommendations and background checks. It was my first online dating rodeo, in case that's not evident. If he and I'd had mutual friends and acquaintances, my educated guess is that I would not have gone out with him a second time. If even a first, because one of those mutual friends/acquaintances would have cautioned me off. I have a strong hunch they would have said, "Look, he's a fun, easygoing guy and fine if you just want to kill time, but not someone to take seriously." I would have taken that to heart. Reputation matters quite a bit to me, and I like to think that my own is above standard. The biggest hazard of the online method of meeting prospective partners is that they really are complete strangers, just like people you meet in bars and clubs, absent the alcohol. They have no third parties to vouch for their integrity, character, and intentions. Think about it. In real life, we are introduced to new people through our extended social circles, friends, workmates, community members, etc. If somebody has a shady reputation or outre ideas about relationships, you hear about it through the grapevine. You definitely know pertinent details about them, like, oh, they're married with 3 kids or cheated on their last partner. Stranger danger is not something you need to worry about when you meet someone in the real world who is connected to people you already know. There have been many times when I expressed interest in a guy only to have someone in my social circle warn me, "Don't date him, girl." Because, insert dodgy tidbit of info here. Dating sites can be a great way to meet the love of your life. I cannot write them off just because they didn't work for me. But these relationships, I believe, must go very slow and take a lot more time to build trust. There must be added rituals of proof. What do their friends and family report about them? What about their workmates and former partners? You just need far more time and information, and I failed miserably, having not done my due diligence. I should have hired a PI to compile background information on the guy beforehand. Because I wasn't just hiring an employee. I was looking for someone steadfast who I knew I could trust to be my wingman. Lesson learned: verify then trust. After I got divorced, I decided to try Tinder. I actually have 2 bad experiences. Nothing fatal or creepy, and no existential threats. It just sucked and convinced me to try the old-fashioned approach. Say hi to a girl and ask for her number. Free dinner. For so many reasons, I think that honesty is always the right thing. So when I met a seemingly nice girl and asked her out, I was just myself. She asked me about my work. I'm a lawyer. She asked me what kind of lawyer. I told her. And then she started asking me, "Isn't it expensive to live in Japan?" Of course, I didn't see where she was going with that, so I honestly said, "It pays well enough that I don't have to worry much." She ordered an expensive dinner, several drinks, and dessert, and I asked for the check. She stood up and said, "You don't mind getting this, right? You make a lot of money, don't you?" And she walked out, using Tinder to find clients. It's not what you think. After the expensive dinner, I decided to go for coffee on the next date. I met a girl for coffee, and she gave me her card. She was in real estate. One thing about dating in Japan is that some girls like newbies. They don't want a guy who has dated a lot of Japanese girls. They want to be your first Japanese girlfriend. So I thought it was a good thing when she asked me how long I'd been in Japan. Just a few weeks at that time. She seemed very interested about my work, what brought me to Japan, and how long I planned to stay. I was looking for a relationship, so these questions sounded like she was deciding whether or not to date me. We decided to meet for coffee. Coffee went well. She asked me more about my work and what part of town I worked in. These are important things because if you date someone, you don't want to be too far away. That can be difficult on a relationship. We decided to meet again a few days later. When she sat down, She put a folder on the table. Okay, when do you want to start looking at apartments? I found several that meet your requirements. She wasn't interested in dating me at all. Every question she asked was geared toward finding my housing requirements. I've seen a lot, but I didn't expect that on Tinder. I've talked to several other foreigners in Japan, and they all have similar experiences. I think another common one is girls who flirt to get free English lessons. They pretend to be interested and go out a few times, but when he moves in, she says she has a boyfriend, and she just wants to be friends. I think someone forgot to tell Japanese girls that Tinder is a dating app. He had hidden his face in his Tinder profile. His profile stated, "Serious people only. I'm 6'2", green-eyed, 86 kilograms, fit, kind and honest. Prefer to keep my pictures private for work reasons, but happy to send to you." Finding the faceless profile mysterious, I swiped right. He matched and messaged me on a Saturday evening. Andrew. Hello, I matched with you as I've seen your profile on different apps over the years, but with the age written as 37 to 40. My profile has me as 33, which is my real age. Me, maybe you've mixed me up with someone else, as 33 is my real age. Andrew, no, I'm certain it was you. We even spoke to each other 2 years ago, and I recall you were older than me. Me, well, 33 is definitely my real age. Or do you mean you think that someone has stolen my photos and set up a fake profile? Andrew, I'm not sure. Do you remember why we didn't end up meeting last time we spoke? Me job? Andrew, no. It's because I wasn't looking for anything serious. Me, that makes sense. I've always been looking for something serious. Did you have your pictures showing last time we spoke? Did I know who I was talking to? Andrew, yes, they were showing then. Anyway, I think I'm going to go to bed now. It was near midnight by then, unless you want to come over since you are only 3 kilometers away. Me, that's tacky. Andrew, why? Me. Well, what do you think happens when you go over to a random person off Tinder's house in the middle of the night? Andrew, enjoyment and fun. Me, that's not what I'm looking for. I found that as a trend when guys raise sexual things very quickly, they aren't really concerned about what is in your best interests, but are very self-focused. Andrew, that's a fair call. I got lucky the other night. I matched with a girl at 11:24 p.m., and by 11:47 p.m., she was at my place. It was great. Me, why did you write serious people only? That makes you sound like you aren't after casual. Andrew, sometimes a person just gets exceedingly horny. Me, did you end up seeing her again? Andrew, unfortunately no. She suffered depression. When I undressed her there were cuts all over her body. Poor girl. Me, and you slept with her anyway? Andrew, yes. She was wild and spontaneous. Me, was she bipolar? Spontaneous and impulsive, but then sinks into depression? Andrew, how did you know that? Me, haha, homeland. Also my best friend during high school suffered it. I think that sometimes the people that have this compulsive sexual side, it's very exciting, but they tend to not be very emotionally stable. Andrew, that confirms what I thought. Me, are you emotionally stable? Andrew, I'm very emotionally stable, but completely emotionally unavailable. I have an insatiable sex drive though. I've calmed down compared to my peak though. Me, how many women do you think you've been in total? Andrew, 400. Actually, 300. No, wait a minute. It's around 400. I know that's messed up and not healthy. Me, wow. So that's like a new person every week? From what I've observed, I do think that when someone has slept with over 100 people, they tend to end up detached. In a way, it's like you've thrown away hundreds of people. Does your family know you are promiscuous? Andrew, at the most extreme points, it was 5 new women a week. No, my family doesn't know. I've gotten better with age. I used to view women more disposably and just ghost them. I'm better at not doing that now. Me, are you good looking? Andrew, I think so. Me, can I see a photo? Andrew, no, I am not going to show you for your curiosity. Me, why did you write in your profile that you are kind? Doesn't ghosting people inevitably cause hurt and treat people like they can be thrown away? Andrew, well, I'm polite and not rude when I interact. I'm upfront about what my intentions are. Me, do you know why you sleep with so many women? Was there something that triggered it, do you think? Andrew, yes, I know what's caused it, but I'm not going to tell you. Me, I hope it wasn't anything too bad. Andrew, of course it's bad. I mean, 400 women is extreme. Something bad would have had to cause that. It's strange as I'm so disciplined in every other aspect of my life, sport, job, family. Me, my Italian model friend jokes that a man is only as monogamous as his options. Have you cheated? Andrew, Yes, I cheat on my partners. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't. Me, how do you morally justify it to yourself? Truthfully, I can't really respect someone who cheats. It's so self-focused an approach. When you care about someone, how could you do something that could hurt them so much? Andrew, my sexual appetite is just ferocious. It's easy for me to get sex. Me, yes, you are the world's definition of successful, and you get girls easily. And girls can be silly in who they are attracted to. Trying to get attention from the guy that doesn't treat them well and is emotionally distant. Andrew, a girl I slept with the other week told me that. She said she was drawn to emotionally unavailable guys. How *********************** up is that? Me, I think it's something girls outgrow eventually. When they get tired of being treated terribly and realize they don't want to be with a crap human being. Andrew, haha. Crap human being. Me, don't you ever want to be in love? Andrew, okay, enough analysis for today. I'm going to bed. Me, good night. Andrew, bye. Then he unmatched me. I wasn't surprised. I recently had one of my worst first date experience with a girl I met on Tinder. It had been a week of Tindering between both of us in which we never really had a long, meaningful, or substantial conversation. It had been a week of hi hellos and what's ups mostly. The only thing the girl stressed upon in our limited chatting was that she was not looking to date someone through Tinder/no hookup strictly, and was just looking around for people to hang out with and be friends with. Sounds perfectly fine, right? As it did to me. So here comes a Saturday night, she pings me and asks me to meet up. I was a little surprised considering we really hadn't talked much, but still agreed to meet. She asked me pick her up, and we went to a pub nearby in KP. There was a couple entry of 2,000 RS for the place, which being a gentleman I paid. No worries. We went inside and started having a drink or two. Realizing that I didn't have any cash due to the recent demonetization, I casually asked her if she had some with her, so that we could buy some cigarettes for the night, but she said she didn't have any cash. Now I started to notice that the girl who was just looking for some genuine people to hang out with, as she originally said on Tinder, was ordering food/alcohol of her choice on my money. That too on the first meeting. I believe by that time she didn't even knew my full name. This dual behavior started pissing me off, and the beer had already started hitting me. So finally I hit off the golden conversation. How will you give me your share? Hearing to which she was shell-shocked as if I had abused her asking for my own money. She replied saying, I thought this was a date, and aren't you supposed to pay on the date with a girl? Me, does this mean you called me to pay your bill? You are also independent enough to handle your own expenses. Aren't you? Girl, this is so weird. Doesn't a date include all this expenses? Aren't you aware? If you really want me to share, so let me tell you that you go on and enjoy the night I am leaving. This is so stupid of you to ask me money. Me, sure if you think so, please go ahead. I haven't came here to pay your bills from my hard-earned money. She left and I enjoyed the night alone, listening to music and drinking beer. Enjoyed my own company. A memorable night indeed. I asked for money only to judge what kind of a person she was, and luckily she showed her true face, which she was trying to hide by creating a facade of big shot party animal, cool, and bindas girl in front of me. I am happy and proud on myself about the whole episode that I had the courage to ask the right questions and act on time, and didn't become another puppet to fall for the trap of such cheap/dubious people around. I never really cared about what she would think of me. Wasn't image conscious for some time, and see it paid off well. I got to know the reality. Speak your mind and heart, it works. I am an engineering student who completed his second semester and went home for the summer vacations. After a month and a half of the holidays was over, I thought of trying something new and exciting which I have never done before, and hence installed the dating app. And now it was just too much to know some girls already, and also get to know that they are seeking to be in a relationship. Now it was time to try my own luck, therefore I liked a few girls, but guess what, I replied to only one of them. Let's say her name is ZZ. To my surprise, I liked her in the morning, as I installed the app last evening only. I got a reply from Z. I was at cloud 9, because I got answered at the very first time only. So we started talking. To my another surprise, she was actually the one for which I never thought of. We started talking around 5 p.m. in the evening, and talked till 2 a.m., as far as I remember, covering the snack time, and obviously the dinner too. I was literally enjoying her company so freaking much. At 2 a.m. we both were sleepy, so we wished each other good night and slept. When I woke up in the morning, I saw the text. Good morning. Good morning. Actually, you should wish me this, as I was the last one who wished you good night. Seeing this level of cuteness, I couldn't stop myself from smiling, and I instantly replied, I am so sorry. We'll take care of it from next time. Good morning. And then when I thought I already found what I wanted to on the app, one asked her WhatsApp no. But she said she doesn't use WhatsApp much, so she gave me her Insta ID, and we followed each other. Earlier I thought she doesn't want to give me her number, that's why she said that, but later I realized it wasn't true, and she really doesn't use WhatsApp much. Our conversations later turned from hours to days. From days to months. Well, I missed to say this. I proposed her online only after 6 days we started talking, and guess what she said? YSSSSSS. That was one of super happy and exciting day of my life. She then gave me her number. We started calling each other. Every night we talked for like 4 hours at least. And to make our relationship more real, as we didn't meet each other, we started making videos for each other to show our rooms and house, and saying to each other what we want to face to face, which wasn't physically possible, as she lived in Delhi and I lived in Ranchi. Later my holidays were about to get over, and we were together for like a month. She used to cry that I will leave her, and I used to calm her down and making her feel better. Because baby, if you are seeing this post, it was not possible for me to forget you. I left for Bangalore. I know more far. But guess what? Distance couldn't break what we had. We even started video chatting with each other after I came to Bangalore. And we have promised each other that we will have a happy ending of what we started months ago. P.S. I love her more now. And I know now that I have found my soulmate. Thanks to the app. And thanks for patient reading. By far my best experiences would be where I matched with a girl, and we spent the first few messages getting acquainted. Following that, we started to grind out questions to make sure we were a good match. After about 45 minutes, we came to the conclusion that we wouldn't mesh well. We thanked each other for the time spent, and went on our own way. The worst experience would be any time where I'm pulling teeth to get conversation out of the other person. I tend to send multi-sentence responses or multiple responses at a time because I want to talk and get to know you. If you can't at least give me one fully developed sentence, you're turning me off. Often I'll call out women on this. Hey, I want to get to know you, but your short responses are a turn off. And sometimes they'll change their ways or stop responding. I don't do it to be a dick, but rather if this is how we're starting off, things will not get better. Now I have had a few girls say let's talk on the phone because I don't like texting, and we continued the conversation on the phone. But simply stated, if I ask you, when was the last time you've been on vacation, and what did you do? And you respond, went to Disney. Road rides. I'm typically unmatching or asking for some sort of elaboration. Absolute worst experience was when I began talking to a match, and after exchanging numbers, she tells me she's married and looking to have an affair. No, I'm out. She then proceeds to text and call me attempting to explain that her husband is away on business for the next couple days. Still not interested. So I end up blocking her number. Thank you, Google Voice. A couple hours later I get a message on my social media. Apparently she found my profile based from my Tinder picture, info, and interests. Very annoying, undesirable experience. Seeing as she had pictures of her husband as well as had him tagged, I said if she continued harassing me I'd send him transcripts of our conversation, then sent her a screenshot of her Tinder profile and conversation. She quickly apologized and disappeared. When I swapped numbers, I screenshot the profile and Tinder conversation for reference later on. That way I remember what we spoke about, and I can glance through the profile for more things to talk about later on. I've done this for all dating sites/apps I've utilized. Oof, get ready for a ride. And please remember before going on that I was young and dumb at the time, and that I am much wiser now. Years ago, I met this guy on Tinder, let's call him John, who looked really cute and listed his occupation as government employed. We chatted for a week, then decided to meet up. I, in my stupidity, told him he could pick me up from the mall, and we could go on a date from there. So John picked me up, and immediately I noticed that he had marks all over his face like he either had really bad acne in his youth or had been burned, which had definitely been edited out in his pictures. However, I decided not to be shallow because, hey, I was looking for love. I got into the car with him, and he says, I actually just got transferred to a new office in the city. Do you mind if I drive by it before we go out? I just want to see where I have to park my car and enter the building. Cool, I thought to myself, thrilled at the idea of this government agent taking me to his new office in the city. Sure, I exclaimed. Now, I grew up in New York, and at this time I had already been driving on the major roads for 3 years. So when he started heading towards the RFK bridge, I was a little confused. I thought he worked in the city? What government offices would be up here? When I voiced this observation to him, he said, "Oh, yes, I do work for the government. The sanitation department. This is the point where I state that I have no issue with garbage men. They make a good living, with good benefits." But I felt deceived. I had been picturing a guy in a suit with a briefcase, impatiently checking his watch at a busy street corner in Midtown. Instead, I found myself in the passenger seat of a mid-sized sedan driving around a garbage dump in Harlem. "It's okay," I told myself. "At least you don't have to get out of the car." Suddenly, he pulls up beside a parked car, then throws his car in reverse. "What are you doing?" I asked suddenly. "What do you mean?" "I'm parking. I wanted to see where the entrance of my building is, remember?" "Do I have to get out?" "Well, of course," he replied, shocked. "I'm not going to leave you here all alone." "Oh, so chivalrous." So now here I am, in a cute little miniskirt and pumps, standing on the sidewalk in the middle of a garbage dump. I text my friend John's full name, his car's make and model, and his license plate, as he takes my hand and leads me around the outside of the building, hemming and hawing over the hum of garbage trucks displaying their putrid contents to me. "This is it," I texted my friends. "This is how I die." After 10 minutes of walking around this garbage dump, John turns to me and says, "Oh, I guess I have to feed you now, right?" "No," I said weakly. "It's okay, you don't have." "I insist," he said decisively, and without another word I got back in the car. I don't know what I was expecting at this point, but I was shocked to suddenly find myself at a seedy diner, with bugs hovering by the fluorescent lights that illuminated our table. John sat down, excited for food. He ordered a hamburger. I settled for French fries. And then, to my absolute horror, he reached out with his bare hand, scooped the ice chips out of his water glass, and chomped down on them with his mouth fully open. He proceeded to do this all throughout dinner, not noticing my mouth opened in an O of shock the entire time. We drove back in complete silence. I think he knew he blew it, because when he dropped me back off at the mall he turned to me and said, "Can I at least have a hug?" I gingerly patted his back, murmured, "I'll call you," then threw open his door, got the hell out of that car, blocked his number, and never online dated again. I've had many experiences on Tinder, some wild, some bland, but one still deeply etched in my mind. This was a good 3 years ago. I am from Singapore. I was 19 turning 20 then. I finished a short stint in the military and was about to go to college. My family wanted a good vacation, so we went to Tokyo and then Hokkaido. It was a good 18 days there in the land of the red sun, and boy was I having a great time with the food and the snow, haha. On my last day there, I decided to play a bit of Tinder just for funsies. Matched this local girl who was learning how to be a chef. She had come over to Hokkaido to work in one of the restaurants there. My family had a villa a little off the main area, so it was secluded. I was surprised we'd even matched, because there definitely weren't that many people around. Anyhow, I got her number quick like I always do, and we talked a bit. I was off for my final day of snowboarding, and told her I'd love to meet that night. She told me, "Isn't this going too fast?" So I sent her a picture of me holding my air ticket, and she saw that I was indeed departing the next day, off the dates on the ticket. So she agreed that we'd meet, and we did that night, right at one of the bars near the foot of the mountain I was snowboarding at. She was sitting down, and from a distance away I could see she was looking around a little anxiously. She seemed like a shy girl. I walked right over, sat sorta beside her and said, "Hey, you must be Grace, I'm Matt," smiley face. She looked so stunned I smiled immediately after, haha. She brought me to a small eatery first for some food, and we got to know one another. Then we headed to a bar for 1 to 2 drinks. It was getting late though, and transport after 10 p.m. in Hokkaido when it's snowing is non-existent. I had to be back early for my flight the next day too. Told you I wasn't lying. Not to mention, I was young and also a little less bold at the time, So I told her I had to go, and we called for a taxi. She seemed a little sad, but asked me if there was anything else I wanted to try in Hokkaido while I had the chance. I told her, hell yeah, I hadn't tried the ice cream yet. She took me to a nearby grocery mart that was open, and we got a small tub of it. It was snowing pretty damn heavily, so as we walked to where my cab was about to arrive, we had an umbrella up, and we were also eating bits of the ice cream. It was a short walk, but damn, it was romantic. She was holding onto me so tightly, and telling me she wished I'd stayed longer. At the alleyway we reached, my taxi was prompt AF. I hugged her and walked toward it. Out of nowhere, a snowball landed on my jacket from the back. I turned around. "You're very mean for leaving me." I laughed, looked at the driver and told him to give me 2 minutes and to just start the meter. I jolted back over and pushed her into the alleyway, just out of sight of people walking by along the streets. I took off my gloves, unbuttoned her jacket, gave her a kiss while feeling her up a little. 2 minutes of that, and I looked at her into her eyes and said I'd never forget that moment. That was it though. I truly had to leave, and all I have is this memory, and of her waving goodbye to me as I boarded the cab. What really this memory perfect was that it was untainted. Two strangers from worlds apart meeting and having a great time together. When relationships end, there's usually some sad moments or even bitterness, but no, not here. I'll always remember how cold it was, and how the ice cream was even colder, while reminiscing how warm she made me feel inside. Likewise, she probably feels the same way too till today. Careful, this will hurt. First real experience, and the channel was between the two of us. Yep, really. To be honest, this is the naughtiest I had because it broke me twice, drained me of my energy and made me feel like sh dash. It still does to this day. Even after hearing numerous times, it was definitely his indecisives, a *** loss. Met a nice guy on Tinder in late March, I'd say. Talked a little and quite quickly. He may have said it was not what he was used to. Asked for a video chat. Somehow, I was at some point stuck in Paris for a night without anywhere to go. We chatted all night long, so I guess that's where the attachment came from. Oh my, first time I got someone to act this nice and caring. I was then hooked, easily, and fell harder as the days went by. Still, we talk quite a lot about several things: life, marriage, how we perceive ourselves, the kind of things we like, and kinks. I tick so many boxes that we get along really well soon. Yep, I know, might be a red flag, but I acted as if it wasn't and chuckled like an idiot. Fast forward to June, where he mentions he may go on a date. I'm baffled and a bit sad. Well, in fact, really sad. I know about that time. Our conversations were steamy most of the time, but still. Talked a bit less. I was a bit worried, and here it goes. Frankly, it broke my trust. But I chose to go on, and even to let him go on that date. Mind you, I was in France and he was in England. So the date, from what he told me, is cancelled. He's sad for a few days, and then gets back sporadically. I still do it, but the magic is gone, and I feel like a second option. Which breaks my heart a little, as I trusted the guy. In July we finally meet. I was ready to punch him in the face and tell him to F off, but melted because in the end he seemed to be a genuine nice guy, very polite, with some conversation, quite the gentleman, and he, like I do, seemed to really like cats, having some privacy and awkward talks about trains or plug sockets or politics. At some point we share some kisses and a hug. Being hugged from the back for me is extremely intimate, so that meant quite a lot. All of a sudden he snaps, walks around a little, and goes back to his normal, quite affable self. Without any indication he'd like to do anything to me. We tell each other we'll get to meet again. I go back to my place with some butterflies in my stomach, and go back to France thinking about how I'd love to be around, and get to know him on the deepest level possible. There can't be any Issa there, right? Right. Then in August, I go to a nearby city. Mind you, around that time he was checking my social medias, lives, etc., but didn't interact that much. We get to see each other again at his place. Nothing, absolutely nothing, romantic happens, to the point where I freak out. When going back to the train, I suggest maybe I could stay a bit longer, so that we talk, and he bluntly tells me there's no romantic connection. I fell from heaven to hell in a matter of minutes, and Ugki cried like an idiot. Going back to France, we talk about that via messages. He mentions not saying things correctly, which makes me wonder a lot. At some point, after trying my best to understand what I did wrong, I send a message saying it's best I don't keep contact with him as it hurts. I tried but ended crying myself to sleep way too much. September ends, days are passing by slowly. I imagine all sorts of stories where he finds better women, more desirable women, this kind of stuff. Had lots of work to do, but focusing was hard. I lost someone I deeply cared for, was trying my best not to text. Then last October, I go back to England, pass by a city he told me wasn't so great. I agree with it, and somehow think it's the right time to send something, to get to know how he is doing. I get some message, where he said he couldn't cope with the hurt that last message in September brought. We talk a little, and all of a sudden he says he has to be careful about what he says and stuff, which is weird. I make him finally say what he wanted to mention, and guess what? That idiot mentions remembering us kissing on our first encounter. Because I'm talking to him, but also because it was enjoyable. So, as stupid as I am, I feel my heart racing again. I want to puke and scream at the same time. I feel tired and sick, but my heart beats faster, and I realize slowly I'd like to see him again. Just right after he says the same thing, he would like to see me again. Hearing my voice is good. This kind of things. So I go back to his city, choose to book a room and head to the city center, see if he wants to join or not. If not, I would have had fun to forget and make some memories. He invites me over to his place, even if it's a bit messy. And guess what? My stupid *** didn't see it coming. We share kisses, compliments, like saying it felt right and stuff, cuddles, a little more than that, even though we didn't have sex, to which I might be grateful today. And at some point, yep, you guessed it, snaps again, tells me he's worthless. I try to reassure him, I can wait, take some time, understand, leave him a little, and be there when needed. But he insists he's not really into carnal things these days, can't ask for me to wait, and so I go back to my hotel room, which was the worst of the whole trip, to be honest. Once again baffled and destroyed from the inside, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. If I was too ugly, or weird, or available. I suggest we see each other again the next day. We do. I go to his place, and it's pretty much a reenactment of the first time he broke my heart. This time, though, I don't ask for a hug. I go close to him, and we do hug a little. The atmosphere is tense, heavy. We go to sleep. I thought I'd be sleeping in the sofa, as he hates sleeping with people. But he says the bed is a better place. I go there and try to fall asleep, but sniffle quite a lot. That's where that indecisive guy kept me close to him. We hugged all night long, me crying and him being really sorry. That was pathetic in all ways possible. But still he hugged tightly. The next day I leave after him, leaving his keys in his mailbox. And then the messages. I went through the whole hate/love thing, being erratic and tense. He says I can't wait for something to magically change when it will not. And we clash a little. Then I go back to my friends in France. Cry, scream a lot, shout. And then my grandma died. And on that very day the guy, without knowing anything of that, texts me, saying he's sorry I'm going through it, saying he's having the hardest time ever having to face the whole thing, is sorry for my loss. And then nothing. I feel days later like talking, maybe in a friendly way, to him, to know if his trip is going well. To be fair, also wanted to see his face again, read the messages again, like someone who's completely lost would. His answers are a bit short, he asks casual things about work. It sounds just plain. I feel a bit hurt but respect it. Sending messages sometimes, thinking about the worthless thing, and trying to find the words to heal, the words to make him feel better. Saying frankly I'll hate him a little, but would be there nonetheless after a while. As I tend to overthink, I try to understand the next days why, in the first place, I was so attached to someone who treated me this way. So I go back on Tinder, where he had new pictures. Some lines from his profile were changed. He mentioned not finding a match while being abroad, and my heart cracks just a little bit more, explodes, enters a fury I didn't know I had. I send a horrible message, then delete the mock and block the guy. Send one last couple of messages on WhatsApp and block him as well. And now, we're almost in December, I'm still in shock, trying to heal from the wounds. If only these were the only, and it was the hardest thing I had to face in life. But it isn't. Still, some days, life is a living hell, and I'd like to tell him to EFF, off again. But since I'm bad at hating people, it only leads me to the same *** of me thinking about him moving on fast, having fun and someone to go to when I'm stuck there with the memory of his touch burning my skin and my eyes. The point of this story is, sometimes hell is filled with good intentions. Careful out there, protect your heart and yourselves before going there. Tinder is no place for people who think love is a construction that needs two builders to be valid. Yes, I'm an attractive Indian girl, and I've slept with a man I met on Tinder. Twice, with the same man, of course. Lucky man is what you'd say? I'd call myself lucky. Here's why. Having broken up recently after a serious 3-year relationship, I felt the need to go out and meet new people to overcome the grief of a broken heart. Hence, I started experimenting on Tinder. I had a 100% match rate. Not kidding, big confidence booster after being abandoned in a relationship. I didn't respond to most chat conversations due to upcoming exams. Just when I got done with exams, one guy that I had matched with a week ago messaged me. I was free, so decided to try chatting. What unfurled was a string of bizarre coincidences. Turned out that he lived in my building, spoke the same native language as me, was from my ex's college, was a startup CEO who had co-founded his company with my ex's best friend. Quickly we ended up chatting for a whole week, and then decided to meet down for a walk. The meeting was an absolute surprise for me. Contrary to his nerdy Tinder profile photo, he was extremely attractive, tall, and well-built. Woot woot! I quickly turned into a teenage girl, having a major crush, based on physical appearance only. I have a huge thing for tall. Suddenly I was asking, who X? Winky face. What I liked the most about this Tinder guy was his unapologetic and unabashed stance about being a man whore. He was in a serious 4-year relationship, post which he slept with 12 to 13 women in a span of 12 months. That's a new woman every month. He's had around 50 to 60 matches on Tinder, which, from what I hear, is an exceptional hit rate for a man. He smoked, he did drugs, was a womanizer. He was the perfect example of my worst possible date. But that meant that I'd never fall for a guy like that. Ever. Which made him the perfect choice for a hookup. I've never been a hookup person. The only guy I had ever slept with was my ex, because I thought I would marry him. But in that state of emotional despair, I decided that I wanted to sleep with that man, that I would never see him again after that it would be the one wrong thing that I chose to do. I was getting tired of being the perfect girl anyway. So we had sex. Best night of my life. But turned out, he's not as much of a dick as he wanted to be. He was really sweet and caring too. He still continued talking to me on chat, and we ended up sleeping together once more. That was it. That was when I realized that I can't separate the physical and the emotional chords in my brain/heart. Women just aren't wired that way. I knew I'd fall for him if we continued talking like we did with all that physical intimacy. And I knew I couldn't fall for him 'cause he was the bad guy. And so we stopped talking. It was tough, but we did. How has it benefited me? I do feel guilty about having had sex with a stranger, but it saved me from immense grief and despair. It gave me excitement during the darkest phase of my life. It taught me that I could feel butterflies in the stomach again. It showed me that there are very attractive, smart men out there, and that I can do better than my ex. So, to the smoking man whore, thank you for everything. I still secretly hope that we could be more, but that'd possibly be highly toxic for me. And thus ended my trust with the man and Tinder too. Never to see them both again.